this meeting together to order this meeting of the March 10th, 2021 City Council. Roll call, please. Mr. Navarro?
Mayor Sanchez?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Kime? Here. Councilmember Jensen? Councilmember Rodriguez? Here. Councilmember Weiss? Here.
Thank you. We're going to start with the invocation. It's by Father Ray of St. Mary's, Star of the Sea. Are we ready for that?
We are getting him on right now.
Please stand. Good evening, Father Ray.
Good evening. How's everybody doing?
Hopeful.
Thank you so much for inviting us. Put ourselves in the holy presence of our Lord. In the name of the Father, the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Loving Father, God of justice and mercy, thank you for the gift of life and opportunity to serve the people of the city of Oceanside. We ask you to be with us in our city council meeting. Help us to act with character and conviction. Help us to listen with understanding and goodwill. Help us to speak with charity and restraint. Send your Holy Spirit to us. Strengthen our spirit of service. Remind us that we are stewards of your authority. Guide us to be the leaders your people need. Help us see the humanity and dignity of those who disagree with us, and to treat all persons, no matter how weak or poor, with the rights your creation deserves. And finally, renew us with the strength of your presence and the joy of helping to build our city worthy of the human person. As this through our Lord Jesus Christ, your Son, lives and reigns within the unity of the Holy Spirit, one God, forever and ever.
Amen. Thank you very much, Father Ray.
Welcome.
Please remain standing and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready to begin? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We're going to begin next with proclamations and presentations. And at this time, understand there's a presentation of the Pet of the Month by the San Diego Humane Society.
Yep. Hi, everybody. Hopefully you can see my friend there, Charlie. He is about 3 years old and 63 big pounds. Hopefully you've been watching him here. He's been playing fetch. He loves to play fetch, and he will actually play fetch on his own. So if you get tired, he can entertain himself. He is available at our San Luis Rey location, which is actually doing adoptions by an appointment system. So if you are interested in learning more about Charlie, you can go to our website at sdhumane.org, and it'll walk you through where you will schedule an appointment to talk to an adoption counselor about him. And then depending on how it works out, then you'll spend some time, you'll schedule some time to meet him and then hopefully pick him up and take him home. He had to be rehomed due to an emergency move, and the landlord didn't accept pets, but we do know that he is good with kids. He doesn't have any history with cats. He is very quiet in the car, seems to be comfortable around strangers, and as you can see, is just looks like a really fun dog to have in your home. Just since I haven't seen you all in so long, I just wanted to let you know we have some great virtual programs happening too. We have a Humane at Home series every Friday on Facebook, and this week is all about bringing home a new pet. So great time to learn on what to be prepared for. We also have a pet talk that is happening on Zoom, and it's next Thursday at 6 o'clock, and it's all about pet communication and how to communicate with your pet. It is free, but we do recommend a $5 fee since we haven't been able to see you all in person. And of course, don't forget our pet food pantry where you can pick up food and supplies every Tuesday through Sunday at our Airport Road location. So that's anybody right now who needs a little bit of support with their pets at home. And we're so glad to see you all again. Thank you so much. And we're so glad that Charlie could join us. Bye-bye.
Thank you, and thank you, Charlie. Next, we do have a proclamation in honor of National Women's History Month 2021. I'm deeply honored to be able to do this proclamation, especially this year. And I ask for your indulgence because when I was contacting women leaders, women organizations, asking them to participate, it turned out that we had, I stopped at 8. So thank you very much for listening to this, and I hope you get as excited as I am in presenting the women that I was able to, some of them meet for the first time, others that I've known about their great works. So we have tonight with us, we have Jennifer White, who is the Secretary of the League of Women Voters of North County, San Diego. We have Linda Berry, President of the North County African American Women's Association. We have Gabriela Hushmand, who is a founding member of MANA, the North County, San Diego. We also have Denise Mueller-Korenik, President of the Seroptimus International of Oceanside, Carlsbad. We have Jerry Nicholas of North County LGBTQ Resource Center. Lisa Nava, President of North County Justice Allies. We also have Rose Orbon Tedding, President of the Women's Club of Oceanside, and they're going to be 104 years old this year.
Wow.
And we have Marina Ariza, Executive Director of the Women's Resource Center. So I'm going to go ahead, because we are going to hear from these women, I'm going to go ahead and start with reading of the proclamation in honor of National Women's History Month. Whereas American women and girls of every race, class, and ethnic background have made historic contributions to the growth and strength of our country in countless recorded and unrecorded ways, and whereas American women have played and continue to play critical economic, cultural, and social roles in every sphere of the life of our country by constituting a significant portion of the labor force working inside and outside of the home, as well as serving our country courageously in the military. And whereas American women have been leaders not only in securing their own rights of suffrage and equal opportunity, but also in the abolitionist movement, the emancipation movement, the industrial labor movement, the civil rights movement, the peace movement, and others, creating a more fair and just society for all. And whereas the League of Women Voters, a nonpartisan organization, was founded in 1920 after the United States Constitution was amended to grant women the right to vote. The roots of the League of Women Voters North San Diego County date back to 1962, expanding to include Oceanside in 1972, empowering residents to shape better communities, building citizen participation in the democratic process, and engaging communities in promoting positive solutions to public policy issues through education and advocacy. And whereas the North County African American Women's Association was created in 1995, dedicated to providing a support network through education, health awareness, and life skills programs for women and girls to increase their self-sufficiency. NCAAWA has given out over $270,000 in scholarships and initiated a pilot mentoring program at King Middle School in Oceanside, seeking to expand to other schools. NCAAWA's annual Gentleman's Gourmet fundraiser is legendary, bringing all people of North San Diego County together in support of women and girls. And whereas MANA was founded in 1974, now in 21 U.S. cities, with MANA, the North County, San Diego, establishing in 2009. MANA's signature program is the Hermanitas Mentoring Program for Latina teens. MANA's mission is to empower Latinas through leadership development, community service, and advocacy. And whereas Seroptimist International was founded in Oakland in 1921, establishing the Oceanside Carlsbad Club on March 29th, 1947. SIOC is a global volunteer organization providing women and girls with access to education and training they need to achieve economic empowerment, with a vision that women and girls have the resources and opportunities to reach their full potential and live their dreams. And whereas the North County LGBTQ Resource Center was established in Oceanside on December 8th, 2011, growing over the last 10 years to include partnerships to prevent human trafficking, free mental health clinics, free AIDS testing, competency training for local businesses, school districts, police departments, and hospitals, support groups of all ages, including military members, homeless programs for youth, transgender support groups, and name change clinics, and advocacy and social justice, and community events like Pride by the Beach, the GSA Club Awards, and Transgender Day of Empowerment and Remembrance. And whereas the North County Justice Allies are focused on offering support and protection to the underrepresented and marginalized groups in our community, active in asserting freedom of speech and assembly with collective actions, including the Women's March of North San Diego County. And whereas the Oceanside Women's Club was formed on January 4th, 1918, joining the General Federation of Women's Clubs in 1920, dedicated to enhancing the local community through the arts, conservation, education, home life, and public affairs, providing scholarships to local high school seniors and nursing students, funding to high school music and art programs, the Oceanside Boys and Girls Club, Oceanside Police and Fire Departments and personnel, the Women's Resource Center, and countless other charities, donating millions of volunteer hours and raising and donating over $8 million. And whereas in 1974, 5 local Oceanside women came together to address the need for a rape crisis center, establishing their dream of a women's resource center after receiving a $45,000 grant from the county with a goal to end sexual violence. The demand for services in partnership with local police expanded WRC's programs to include a safe place for domestic violence and child abuse victims, generating 17 to 18 underground locations where battered women and their children were sheltered in private homes of brave, committed community members. The WRC now runs a 23-unit transitional facility, the WRC thrift store, generating much-needed revenue, and a domestic violence response team, reviving courage, empowering lives. And whereas on January 20th, 2021, United States Vice President Kamala Harris was sworn into office as the first woman, first African American, first Asian American to hold the office. And whereas despite these contributions to our country and to Oceanside, the role of American women in history has been consistently overlooked and undervalued in the literature, teaching, and study of American history. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Mayor Esther Sanchez, on behalf of the City of Oceanside, do proclaim March 2021 as Women's History Month in the City of Oceanside, and ask all residents to join us in celebrating women's history, achievements, and challenges with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities. Signed this 10th day of March 2021 in Oceanside, California. And I want to give a huge applause right now to these wonderful, phenomenal women that we have with us tonight. Thank you very much. If we can start with hearing from Jennifer White, who is the Secretary of the League of Women Voters of North San Diego County.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor Sanchez. It is an honor to be a part of this proclamation in honor of Women's History Month. And we appreciate being recognized with all the other women's groups in Oceanside. I am representing the League of Women Voters of North County. Our league formed in the 1960s and early 70s with cities from Del Mar up to Oceanside and cities east, including Escondido and Fallbrook. The National League of Women Voters was founded in 1920 after the U.S. Constitution was amended to grant women the right to vote. North County League empowers residents to shape better communities, building citizen participation in the democratic process, and engaging communities in promoting positive solutions to public policy issues through education and advocacy. Thank you again.
Thank you, Jennifer. Next, Linda Berry, President of the North County African Americans Women's Association. Good evening, Linda.
Oh, good evening, Mayor Sanchez. Thank you so much. And on behalf of the North County African American Women's Association, it is an honor to be included with so many wonderful organizations in memory and in life for the Women's Association and for Women's Month. North County African American Women's Association, in the founder's vision, is here to provide support for women and young ladies of color and of ethnicity. We are here to support, and we thank you for all that Oceanside has to offer. Thank you so much for this honor and privilege.
Thank you, Linda. Next, Gabriela Hushmand, founding member of MANA de North San Diego County.
Hi, I'm Gabriela Hushman, and I'm the co-founder and former president for 11 years of MANA de North County San Diego. We represent, like you mentioned before, this is a national organization, and we represent the local chapter. We are a chapter of 501c3. Our mission is to have Latina teens success in life, education, leadership, and community service. We provide these services. We provide scholarships also, thanks to Soroptimist International, Caswell Oceanside, and to Route 78, the chapter in Escondido. We serve the girls from Caswell, Unify. We have a small group here in Oceanside, Camino High School, and we also serve girls from Escondido. This is an after-school program, and it's a mentoring program for Latina girls. I want to say this in Spanish, ¿that's okay?
Yes.
Soy Gabriela Hushman, una de las fundadoras de la organización de MANA del Condado de San Diego. Esta organización es una organización nacional. Hemos fundado esta organización en San Diego desde el 2009 y es un programa mentor para señoritas latinas para ayudarles a que crezcan en la forma emocional y social y académica en las escuelas del Condado Norte. También ofrecemos becas para ellas gracias a la ayuda y el apoyo de Soroptimist Internacional de Oceanside Carlsbad y de la Ruta 78. Estamos aquí para apoyar a las señoritas latinas de todas las escuelas del Condado Norte. Gracias.
Gracias, Gabriela. Next, Denise Mueller-Korenik, President of the Soroptimist International of Oceanside Carlsbad.
Thank you. I am honored as the current president of Soroptimist International of Oceanside Carlsbad to be here this evening in recognition of the efforts benefiting women and girls in Oceanside. Soroptimist transforms the lives and status of women and girls through education, empowerment, and enabling opportunities. Our local chapter was founded, as it was mentioned, in March of 1947. So this month we celebrate 74 years in Oceanside. Wow. Our international organization celebrates 100 years and was founded in California by Violet Richardson in 1921, a true trailblazer for women in leadership, that's for sure. Today, Seroptimus has a network of over 72,000 club members in 121 countries, working at local, national, and international levels to educate, empower, and enable opportunities for women and girls. One amazing element of our organization is that at the international level, we also hold general consultative status at the United Nations with representatives in 7 major offices. This allows Seroptimus to attend high-level political forums and work with multinational governments to influence agenda. For decades, we've created and supported international grassroots projects. We champion issues such as human trafficking, clean water and sanitation, quality education for all, and sustainable development, to name just a few. We are known to be on-the-ground citizens who work with people who are in communities, not just our fundraisers. Seroptimus International of Oceanside Carlsbad is honored to be recognized for Women's History Month 2021 by the City of Oceanside. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. Next, Jerry Nicholas of the North County LGBTQ Resource Center. I understand, Jerry, you're answering the phones right now, and so I hope you're with us. Really active volunteer.
Yes. Hi there. It's an honor to be here. My name is Jerry Nicholas. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I represent the North County LGBTQ Resource Center, founded by our executive director, Max Disposti. For International Women's Month, we thank the City of Oceanside and Mayor Esther Sanchez. We would like to dedicate this resolution to all women, as well as transgender women that have stood up, fought, and shaped the lives of women and girls today. As pioneers in the LGBTQ community, Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera was credited with starting the infamous Stonewall Uprising of 1969. They cast the first stone for equality and dignity for all. In addition, I would like to proudly acknowledge Kumuhina from my native homeland of Hawaii. Hinale Moana Wankalu is the first Oscar-nominated Hawaiian transgender film director of an animated short documentary, Kapimahu. More importantly, let's all stand in solidarity today and every day moving forward to recognize and support all women in our community and around the globe. Mahalo nui loa. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Next, we have Lisa Nava, President of North County Justice Allies.
Thank you so much for the honor of being here, Mayor Sanchez and council members. My name is Lisa Nava, and I am the founder and president of the North County Justice Allies and previous North County Women's March organizer. We were founded in 2016 as a group of women in response and a call to action of the Women's March and the partisan political climate. We are a 501c4 that serves all of North County with programs such as mutual aid programs, addiction awareness programs, and more. As women, we strive to harness the diverse political power of women and create transformative social change. We call on ourselves and others to invest in local female politicians and uplift and educate our youth on issues that affect them locally, nationally, and while promoting a more political engagement with our youth. In celebration of Women's History Month, we recognize that women have been on the front lines of caring for our communities for centuries, often sacrificing their own safety to care for their children and the community at large. We also recognize that the women across the globe face violence daily and struggle to survive in safety. We stand in solidarity with them. We stand in solidarity with Black Lives Matter, and we call on all women to create intersectional, inclusive spaces and to continue to care and advocate for their own communities. Thank you for this honor in celebrating Women's History Month. And I'm the baby of the family, so I really appreciate being here.
Thank you, Lisa. Next, Rose Orbon Tedding, President of the Women's Club of Oceanside.
Hi, thank you, Mayor Sanchez. It's an honor to be here. and I'm very proud to represent the Women's Club of Oceanside. We are a very passionate group of women. We belong to the California Federations of Women's Club and the General Federation of Women's Club as well. And we are here to support our community and watch it grow. And we're going to do whatever it takes. I apologize, I didn't have anything prepared, but thank you very much for this honor. Our club really appreciates it. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe you are our oldest organization. It's 104
Yes.
years. That's amazing. Thank you so much, Rose. Thank you.
Thank you.
Last but not least, Marina Ariza, Executive Director of the Women's Resource Center. Marina?
Yes, hello everybody. My name is Marina Ariza, and I'm honored, and it is my passion to be the CEO of the Women's Resource Center. For the last 47 years, WRC had empowered women to raise up and fight against violence against women. WRC was found by the strength, passion, and spirit of 5 local amazing women from Oceanside. Honestly, I will say they were the Me Too movement of the 70s. They were ahead on their time, and I'm so proud to continue that legacy. WRC has been advocated for the rights that we all females must have. Females and males, we should have the same rights, and we should continue fighting for that. At the highest level, WRC believes that everybody deserves to live a life free of the crimes of domestic violence and sexual assault, and that women must have equality in all arenas, on all fields of our society. Although there is still a long way to go, we are finally seeing the results of this equality that we have been fighting for. Kamala Harris became the first vice president of our country. And I know she has already inspired the new and future generations to believe that yes, a change is possible. Yes, guess what? We all should fight together to have the next president of this country to be a female. I want to end by saying that I just want to say to the city of Oceanside and Esther, how grateful we are for the 47 years that we have worked together. By doing so, we have empowered more than 245,000 families, mothers, and their children to end violence against women. And I know together we can. Y arriba las mujeres. Gracias.
Thank you, Marina. Did you want to say...
Arriba.
Arriba.
Arriba. Did you want to say a little bit in Spanish, Marina? ¿Querías decir algo en español?
Sí, claro que sí, solo quiero decir, claro, que es un honor para mí representar como hispana con un acento como el que tengo, y de repente un sueño se cumplió y soy la directora del Centro Women's Resource Center. Me encanta decirlo, somos una organización con una historia maravillosa, una historia de esta pasión de 5 mujeres que creyeron y lucharon 47 años atrás en que un cambio se podría dar. Y yo voy a continuar el legado que ellas han dejado. Yo sé que la igualdad que los hombres y mujeres debemos tener quizás todavía esté en el proceso, pero ahí vamos poquito a poquito. Kamala Harris llegó a ser la primera vicepresidente mujer de nuestro país. Y yo sé que ella ha inspirado y está inspirando a la futura generación de mujeres que creen en un cambio. Y todas nosotras juntas debemos de luchar para que el siguiente presidente de los Estados Unidos sea una mujer. Quiero terminar mi discurso diciendo que estoy muy agradecida con Esther y con la ciudad de Oceanside porque hemos trabajado 47 años juntos, 47 años en que hemos hombro con hombro luchado por una igualdad y por favor que se termine la violencia doméstica y el abuso sexual. Juntos hemos empoderado casi 250,000 familias, mujeres y sus hijos para que se termine este abuso a las mujeres y la violencia doméstica. Muchísimas gracias. Claro que podemos y arriba las mujeres.
Arriba. Gracias, Marina.
De nada.
Thank you, and thank you for celebrating this proclamation with me, with us, here in City of Oceanside, where we're proud to empower our women employees and clients, and feeling very, very strong about equity and equality. Thank you. Next on the agenda is our closed session report. Mr. Mullen?
Thank you. Council met in closed session to discuss item 1 on the closed session agenda, the conference with labor negotiator involving the status of negotiations with the Oceanside Fire Association, Oceanside Fire Management Association, the management employees of the City of Oceanside, and the unrepresented. And there is no action to report under the Brown Act on item 1. With respect to item 2, item 2A1 on the agenda was pulled and not discussed. Item 2A B1 is significant exposure to litigation involving Ava Karas Inc., Walid Hama, AMPM gas station. With respect to a tort claim file, the council did discuss and give direction on that item, but there's no action under the Brown Act to report. Finally, the council did meet and discuss 2 real property items. The 3.30 acres of vacant land located at 1315 Sleeping Indian Road, negotiating parties City of Oceanside and Robert Richter, trustee of the Dustin Campbell and Kristen Campbell Separate Share Trust. Negotiator for City, Vicky Gutierrez. Under negotiations are price and terms for the purchase of the property. That item was discussed, direction was provided, but there's no action under the Brown Act to report. Finally, item 3B, property involved 3.02 acres of city-owned vacant land located on Morrow Heights Road. Negotiating party, City of Oceanside. There is no other party at this time. Under negotiations or discussion is price of the potential sale of the property. Again, the item was discussed, direction provided, but no action to report. And on item 3A and B, Councilmember Rodriguez recused himself. That's all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moe. Next is the consent calendar items. Item number 16 has been continued to the March 24th meeting of the City Council. I understand that item number 15 has been pulled by the public. We have 3 speakers. Is there a motion to adopt the, to move to approve the balance? Okay, so moved and there's seconded. Any other comments by the council members? Please vote.
Motion approved, 5-0.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the general items. Item number 19, that is approval of professional service agreement with West Yost Association, Associates of Davis for design services for the San Luis Rey Water Reclamation Facility
Mayor,
Major Upgrades Project.
Mayor, we do have public on the consent.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Sorry. Item number, my apologies, item number 15.
15.
Which is adoption of a resolution authorizing the city to submit an application for the shoreline erosion control grant for fiscal year 2022-2023 through the State of California Department of Parks and Recreation, Division of Boating and Waterways for the beach sand replenishment and retention device project, and authorization for the city manager to execute all necessary grant documents. I understand we have 3 members of the public.
Yes, we do. Our first speaker is Carolyn Kramer, but she is not in the room, so we'll move on to our next speaker, which is Diane Wilkie. And Ms. Wilkie, whenever you're ready.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. To submit a grant proposal to the State Parks and Rec Commission at this time is premature. The city has failed to follow through with additional workshops to provide residents for input. This had been previously indicated at the initial meeting. Choosing to operate clandestinely by submitting the proposal to Sandag, thankfully we had 2 very alert residents who were paying attention to this. The current plan, which proposes 12 groins within a short distance, has met with considerable operation since it was discovered. Why would we choose to kick the can down the beach to our neighbors to the south, creating a sand depletion issue for them? Why would we create a monumental eyesore and impede free open access to our beachgoers? Why are you choosing to put a Band-Aid on our #1 tourism draw? A serious look for a cure and not a Band-Aid is what is called for. Additionally, plans for an HDPE or high-density polyethylene pipe for sand replenishment is likewise fraught with problems. The state of California very recently announced its intention to ban PFAS chemicals as a class, not chemical by chemical. This is a class of now an estimated 9,000 chemicals, which cause significant health and environmental damage. The HDPE both leachates chemicals and absorbs toxins and bacteria. The science behind this is it's there. Choosing plastic products is choosing to pollute the ocean, aquatic and wildlife, and humans alike. Where were the proponents of this plan during the Microplastics 2020 conference? Where were they last week during the World Ocean Summit? There are other options available that need to be explored. Please do not approve this grant proposal at this time. It's premature.
Thank you. I understand that Carolyn Kramer is under Carol.
Oh, it's under Carol. Okay. Then we are, we have Sherry Mackin right now, and then we'll go back to Ms. Kramer. So Sherry, we're going to ask you to unmute yourself, and whenever you're ready.
I think I'm unmuted. Yeah? Can you hear me?
Yes, you could start.
Thank you. The grant the city is applying for does not align with the project the city proposes. The amended California Public Beach Restoration Act /program grant can only be used for the restoration, and I quote, restoration, enhancement, and nourishment of public beaches as determined to be necessary by the government through the cost-effective engineered placement of sand on the beach or in the near shore environment, not for the use for final design, engineering, and permitting phase of the use of hard structures such as those that you are proposing. If the city does apply for this grant, it would be fraud, as I am a demonstration project with the possibility of adding 12 groins from the pier to the Buena Vista Lagoon. I support sand replenishment and creative ways to get sand on our beaches, but not hard structures, especially 12 groins between a pier and Buena Vista Lagoon. I urge you not to follow. Zeb?
Yes, you're freezing up there.
Oh, wow.
So
I'm sorry.
You have about 1:30 left if you want to.
Yeah, your final words were, I urge you not to, and then you drifted off. So if you want to.
I just hope, I took my camera down just to try and see if the bandwidth will expand. But please don't be fraudulent in this application. The application is not for anything that has to do with hard structures. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we'll go back to Carolyn Kramer, and just a friendly reminder to our public, when you log in, please make sure you log in under the name that you're registered with, so it's easier for us to find you. All right, Carolyn, whenever you're ready.
Yep, sorry, that's the way my Zoom was set up, was with Carol. Sorry for that. All right, good evening, Mayor Sanchez and Council. The item before you is to seek grant funding for beach sand replenishment and retention device project. I definitely support sand replenishment, but I am recording my opposition to accepting any grant funding for any and all sand retention device funding, and to voice my opposition to any and all sand retention that has to do with hard structures, groins and jetties, seawalls, or revetment. The funding for this grant, the California Public Beach Restoration Act, is for the following purposes: restoration, enhancement, and nourishment of public beaches, as determined to be necessary by the department through the cost-effective engineered placement of sand on the beach or in the near shore environment. The bill does not fund sand retention devices or projects. The Department of Boating and Waterways should be made aware of your intentions to proceed with the design and permitting of sand retention devices. And I do believe you received a letter from Surfrider Foundation this afternoon, and I will just read their last part of the statement. Surfrider's concern is that the city is seeking state funds that were intended not to support structures such as grounds, which negatively impact our region's beaches overall and which have unknown impacts to surf and other coastal resources. Because we cannot find any direct funding allocation to the Shoreline Erosion Control Program, and yet we do find transfers of dollars from a fund specifically intended to avoid shoreline structures, we are concerned that the city is not pursuing a transparent source of funding for its sand retention project. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Kramer.
That concludes the public.
Thank you. Do we have staff that can respond to that? Basically, the issue seems to be whether the grant could be used for hard structures versus sand replenishment or renourishment projects, basically dredging and then placing sand on the beach.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, council members, Kyle Koger, City Public Works Director. So if you go on the website for the Department of Boating and Waterways, there's two types of grants. And the grant that we're applying for, it does allow for the planning and construction of various things, including hard structures. We also called the program administrator with the state and walked him through everything that we were doing. We told him about the feasibility study, the 6 options that we were looking at, you know, how we had gotten to this point, which we haven't made a decision on what option to recommend going forward. We laid it all out for him and said, hey, you know, we'd like to get money for the next phase of the project, which is design and permitting. Can we do that and not tell you what option we're going to pick yet? And he said, yeah, that's fine. And he actually encouraged us to apply for it. So that's what we did, or that's what we would like to do.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Keim?
I just want to thank staff for applying for this grant. I think it's very prudent. Obviously, I heard a few things that concerned me in the public comments, and I want to reiterate what Mr. Koger said. We haven't made a decision. I think what we've done with this project is made it known that getting sand on our beaches is a priority, and I think that's a widely held priority throughout the city. I'd be negligent for us not to do it and look for these funding sources. So thank you. I'm going to move approval.
Okay, Councilmember Weiss?
I'll second.
Any other comments?
No.
By Councilmember Weiss. No other comments? Okay, Councilmember Rodriguez?
Quick question. Regardless, if we're applying for a grant, this would have to go through a future public process, correct? Where the community would have to weigh in on any sort of decisions regarding construction, soil retention, anything to do with this. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. We're working on a feasibility study right now. We should be finished with it by summer. We're going to have another public workshop probably before that, and then we're going to bring it back to council and give you our recommendation. And at that time, if you want us to move forward, we will. If you want us to choose another option, we'll talk about it then.
Very good. So just to reiterate to the public comment, which I appreciate, I did read the Surf Ride letter. There's going to be plenty of ample opportunity to weigh in on this as it moves forward, and I will fully support this item as well.
Thank you. My comments. I was present for the presentation of the proposal, at least at this stage, at the Shoreline Preservation Advisory Committee of Sandag, and I do have some concerns, and I would have preferred to have seen council direction before this, so I feel like this is premature at this time. Let's vote.
Motion approved, 4-1. Sanchez, no.
Thank you. Now, general items. And that is item number 19. Sorry about that. Ms. Leahy. This is approval of a professional services agreement with West Yost Associates of Davis for design services for the San Luis Rey Water Reclamation Facility Major Upgrades Project, Phase 2, in an amount not to exceed $1,099,056. Approve an appropriation from the Sewer Fixed Asset Replacement Fund in the amount of $1.2 million, and authorization for the city manager to execute the agreement. Report by Ms. Lindsay Leahy, Principal Water Engineer.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council, Lindsay Leahy with the Water Utilities Department, here tonight to discuss item number 19, Professional Services Agreement with West Yost and appropriation of funds. Tonight, staff recommends that Council approve a professional service agreement with West Yost for the San Luis Rey Water Reclamation Facility Major Upgrades Project Phase 2 in an amount not to exceed $1,099,056, and approve an appropriation from the Sewer Fixed Asset Replacement Fund in an amount of $1.2 million, and authorize the city manager to execute this agreement. In 1972, the San Luis Rey Water Reclamation Facility was constructed, and 50 years later, a condition assessment of the facility was completed, identifying several large replacement and rehabilitation projects for the plant. In 2016, the San Luis Rey Major Upgrades Phase 1 project was completed, which included replacing and rehabbing some facilities identified in the 2012 assessment. Phase 1 included the seismic retrofit of the gravity belt thickener building, replacement of process gates, valves, and piping throughout the facility, and concrete repairs throughout Plant 1 of San Luis Rey. There were multiple large projects that were deferred to a second phase project. Phase 2, which is in front of you tonight, includes the design of some of the deferred projects from the 2012 assessment, including valve, screen, and gate replacements, odor control systems throughout the facility, concrete repair, and digester upgrades, to name a few. Additionally, staff has identified areas for the consultant to evaluate for other repairs and upgrades that may or may not be needed. 2 proposals were received, and West Yost was ranked the highest based on qualifications as well as cost. There's 2 fees included with this agreement. The first is a $750,000 base fee, and that includes what we call required and optional tasks. The required tasks are the ones that are identified that staff is requesting the consultant to take all the way through final design, so initial assessment through final design. The optional tasks will have the consultant look at the areas of potential need throughout the plant and identify whether or not those repairs or rehab are necessary, and if so, prioritize those. All of the assessments of both the required and optional tasks are included in the base fee. However, there's an owner-controlled optional task fee that we've included for just under $350,000. And what this will allow staff to do is authorize the final design of some or all of the optional tasks depending on their priority and their need throughout the project. This would bring a total of $1,099,056 for the base fee as well as the optional tasks included in this scope. Staff is recommending an appropriation from the Sewer Fixed Asset Replacement Fund in an amount of $1.2 million to fund this contract. And the funding source for the Sewer Fixed Asset Replacement Fund comes from our sewer service and flow charges. With that, staff recommends approval of the agreement with West Yost, appropriation of funds in an amount not to exceed $1.2 million, and authorization from the city manager to execute the agreement. I am available for any questions.
Thank you. Any public?
There is no public on this item.
Councilmember Weiss?
Move approval, staff recommendation.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Motion approved, 5-0.
Thank you. Do we have public comments on off-agenda items? Ms. Navarro?
On off-agenda items, we have two speakers. We have Joe Hill to be followed by Ken Layton, and I believe we're getting Mr. Hill on the line right now.
Thank you.
Can you see me?
Not yet.
Now we can.
Yeah.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council. Joe Hill, 21-year resident of Oceanside. How can our city and even this City Council trust Councilmember Rodriguez's decision-making ability involving any financial decisions? He claims to be a successful local businessman with great financial knowledge of how a business and a city's finances, budgets, and spending should be handled. Let's recap his successes. You have the handout with his court lawsuit history, and all are business related except the divorce attorney. The handout shows the top 2 current active civil lawsuits in which he is being sued for fraud and deceit, breach of contract, constructive trust, quiet title, declaratory relief, equitable lien, and equitable subrogation involving mortgage loans that appear to total over $1 million. Mr. Rodriguez, his 2 real estate LLCs, and his trust have been in mortgage default a total of 7 times in the last 3 years, with 1/2 of one property going into foreclosure and sold at auction, and then foreclosed again from a different loan on that same property with a foreclosure frozen due to the above court case. Currently, his 2 real estate LLCs owe over $24,000 total in unpaid franchise tax board liens and have been suspended from doing business in California. They are part of your handout. And Sarah Getchell Rodriguez is Christopher's wife's name. He has taken out excessive mortgage loans on the 3 Oceanside properties he owns, 7 on his primary residence in 7 years, 7 on his Blue Heron flip in 4 years, and 8 on a previous residence he owns in the last 12 years. Of these 22 loans that have been made in his name, his trust's name, and his LLC names, 13 have been high-interest private lender hard money loans. Mr. Rodriguez continually attempts to politically hijack and bully the city staff and this city council regarding financial approvals on almost every item. These are purely just political stunts and grandstanding to satisfy his own ego, political ambitions, and satisfy his favors to outsiders. So I ask the question again, how can our city and even the city council trust Councilmember Rodriguez's decision-making ability involving any financial decisions, period? This all goes back to just a lack of ethical credibility on his part. I've asked Mr. Navarro to make the court information part of the public record. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Ken Layton.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You could start.
Thank you. Ken Layton speaking only for myself. After last meeting, Councilwoman Corey Jensen told a city staffer that Human Resources had proof that she in fact lived in District 1. A public records request recently showed that the only proof she provided to HR was a signed sheet of paper that said she lived at 815 North Tremont, or North Pacific. I asked last meeting if she could simply produce a photo ID, but no. This is particularly interesting since a commissioner was just taken off a city commission tonight because that person no longer lives in Oceanside. I guess Miss Jensen is special. She gets a free pass about this, even though she had already told the city she rented 815 North Pacific out as a rental. Thank you, Victor Roy, for paying the $798 you owed the city for filing your candidate statement. Of course, you only did it because it became an issue. And like a true stand-up guy, you only did it under protest. Even though every other candidate in this and every other city paid up and everyone else knew the rules, you maintained you were special and the rules did not apply to you. So when you did pay up last week, you claimed in writing that the county of San Diego and its registrar are operating illegally. you claimed discrimination. You made these outrageous slurs without an explanation. Mr. Roy, what an embarrassment. Oh, and in case you missed it, there was a story that appeared yesterday online in the San Diego Reader that outlined how certain beachfront homeowners were expanding their front yards at the expense of the public beach, with the approval of the City of Oceanside. The Coastal Commission sent a stop work order to the city last Friday, but the city ignored it, and the new boulders and keep dropping, and the heavy equipment keeps rolling. At this morning's Coastal Commission meeting, the article and the City of Oceanside's failure to secure proper permits regarding our public beaches was discussed. California Coastal Commission Executive Director Jack Ainsworth said he was, quote, very disappointed that Oceanside ignored the stop work order. I am told litigation is likely on its way. All I want to know is, what will we call this new Oceanside phenomenon? I say we let Oceanside planner Russ Cunningham make the call about how we name it. So Russ, do we call this Whitewater Gate, or maybe we should call it Breakwater Gate?
Thank you.
That concludes the public comment.
Thank you. We still have a few minutes. Any public on item number 23?
No public on item number 23.
Thank you. I make a motion to adopt the list of appointments. I'm actually pulling one that is for the Housing Commission, the alternate one appointment. So move approval of the balance. Is there a second? Deputy Mayor Keim.
I noticed there were a couple spots that weren't filled on this round of appointments. I'd like to respectfully request if we just move that all to the next meeting.
I already have noticed that we'll be, I will be bringing more appointments at the March 24th meeting.
Okay, I would like to do it all at one time.
The requirement is to notify 14 days in advance, so I did that yesterday. So was that a second?
No, I want to wait and do it all at one time, Mayor.
Well, some of these need a majority. Most of these have to do with vacancies of people that have not, that resigned beforehand.
Again, and this is not a reflection on any of the appointees. It's just I would like to do this all at once and do it in 2 weeks.
Any other comments? Councilmember Rodriguez.
Yes, I would like to, didn't look like you got a second, so I'd like to make an alternative motion to well, you don't, so you want to hold off on this. I guess I'm fine with that, but I would like to, we're replacing one of our housing commissioners who is a longtime advocate for our mobile home communities and
She's actually resigned.
I understand,
right.
I have the floor. Longtime advocate of understanding the issues that our mobile home community deals with, including mobile home rent control and the value of keeping that intact. And so I would like to make a motion to, instead of Ms. Vanessa Webster, I would like the applicant Linda Lewis Wright, who is a big advocate for our mobile home community that I've gotten to know very well. And I think she would be a much better fit for that position. But I'm on board with waiting, but I'm going to make this motion another day as well. So
Councilmember Weiss?
I will support Deputy Mayor Keim's recommendation to move it for 2 weeks, but I would ask that any of us that have recommendations between now and before the mayor has to put it on the agenda, that we get those recommendations to her, so we're not doing this here.
Right, because as you know, you cannot bring forward a motion, you can only bring a second. So I am withdrawing my list for today. I'm going to be bringing another list on the 24th, and if they're not acceptable, then they will not pass.
So, and if you have recommendations, send them to her.
Thank you. Okay, it's 6 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and take up our one public hearing item. That is item number 20, adoption of a resolution approving 2 conditional use permits, CUP 19-00023 and CUP 19-00024, and a waiver of location requirements for regulated use to allow a cannabis cultivation and nursery facility within 4 greenhouses at 5712 North River Road, Zenleaf Cannabis Facility, applicant Zenleaf LLC. I'd like to go ahead and open this public hearing and request disclosures from council members and also constituent contacts and correspondence.
Staff and applicant.
Staff and applicant.
No contact.
Staff and applicant.
Staff only.
Thank you. And Mr. Novato, do you have any correspondence and or petitions?
All correspondence has been forwarded to the council, and we have no petitions on this item.
Thank you very much. So we begin with Mr. Rob Dimahowski, Senior Planner. How'd I do?
That was perfect.
Thank you.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council members. I'm Rob Dimahowski with the Planning Division, and here this evening to present the Zenleaf Cannabis Cultivation and Nursery Facility. The applicant is requesting approval of 2 conditional use permits to allow a cannabis cultivation and mixed light and a cannabis nursery. The applicant is also requesting a waiver of the locational requirements for a regulated use that is within 1,000 feet of a residential district. Chapter 7, Article 13 of the Municipal Code allows cannabis facilities in specific industrial and agricultural zoning districts subject to the issuance of a local license, approval of a conditional use permit, and issuance of a state license. Zenleaf successfully completed the application process and was granted a local license for cultivation and nursery in 2019, and they have since renewed their annual license as required. The project site is a 10.26 acre parcel located at 5712 North River Road in the Southmore Hills planning area. The project has a general plan and land use designation and zoning designation of agricultural. Surrounding land uses are primary agricultural with the San Luis Rey River to the south and a residential subdivision across the river on the south side of the river. The project site currently operates as a wholesale plant nursery and is developed with existing greenhouses, accessory structures, a barn, and a residential dwelling. The project would include the use of an existing 20,000 square foot greenhouse and the construction of 3 new 22,410 square foot greenhouses. As authorized by the state and local licenses, the business will be permitted to cultivate and harvest cannabis for transportation by a licensed distributor. The nursery facility would allow for the propagation of plants for both on-site use and sale to third parties. No direct sales or delivery to the public is authorized. Access to the project site is provided from North River Road, and a new access drive and parking area would be provided for employee parking, emergency vehicle access, and trash collection. The facility is anticipated to have 14 employees, and public access will be prohibited. Per the business plan, the plant growing process begins in the propagation nursery where plants are cloned and placed in containers. Once the plants are large enough, they are moved to the vegetative room and replanted in a growing medium, such as the hydroponic method. The applicant intends to commence operation in 2 phases. As shown on the map, phase 1 would include using the existing 20,000 square foot greenhouse for nursery purposes, and they would create genetic copies and sell those small plants in the regulated market. And phase 2 would include the construction of the 3 new greenhouses for future cultivation, and commencement of either phase is subject to applicable conditions of approval, and they must demonstrate compliance. The facility would cultivate in 4 mixed light greenhouses. Each of the new greenhouses would be constructed on a permanent foundation and built of durable materials, including corrugated metal, to provide enhanced security. And all plants would be grown in above ground containers. The general plan designates the property as agricultural with the primary objective to farm, graze, or conduct animal husbandry with only minor intrusion of non-agricultural uses. The proposed use is found consistent with the general plan. The cannabis facility is an agricultural use consistent with the existing wholesale nursery operation on the property and agricultural operations in the immediate vicinity. The proposed cannabis facility is located in the agricultural zoning district. Cannabis cultivation is an agricultural activity consistent with the agricultural zone district, and the project has been reviewed and found consistent with the development standards provided in Article 14. Approval of a CUP is subject to findings as provided in the zoning ordinance. Staff finds that the proposed use is an agricultural use consistent with the general plan and agricultural district. Provisions of the local license and the recommended conditions of approval would ensure that the facility will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare of persons residing or working adjacent to the site or creating land use incompatibilities. And as an agricultural use, the project would construct greenhouses consistent with existing agricultural structures on site and in the area and would be visually compatible. And the site would not produce excessive noise, and odor would be addressed by the use of advanced odor absorbing ventilation and exhaust systems that prevent odor from escaping the greenhouses. The Planning Commission considered the project on February 8th of 2021 and conducted a public hearing and adopted the resolution by 6-0 recommending approval of the project. The applicant is also requesting a waiver of the locational requirements in accordance with Article 36 of the zoning ordinance to allow a regulated use that is within 1,000 feet of a residential zoning district. A waiver may be granted if found not to constitute an over concentration of regulated uses or impact sensitive uses. The proposed facility is located approximately 515 from a residential zone district, and per the applicant's justification, the nearest district is across the San Luis River and has no direct pathway or access to the project site. The river corridor provides a natural barrier, and there is vegetation and trees between the site and that residential subdivision. A pedestrian would have to walk over 4 miles to get to the site. And then furthermore, the facility would be secured per the local license and operational requirements to include 24-hour security, alarm systems, and secured access to prevent unauthorized entrance. Staff finds that the proposed use is consistent with the waiver criteria and would not constitute an over concentration of regulated uses. And as shown on the map, although the project is within 515 feet of a residential district, the nearest home is actually over 1,000 feet away. In conclusion, staff and the Planning Commission recommend that the City Council adopt a resolution approving conditional use permits CUP 1923 and CUP 1924 and a waiver of locational requirements for regulated use to allow a cannabis cultivation and nursery facility within 4 greenhouses located at 5712 North River Road. This concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have public comments?
Yes, we do. We have 7 members of the public wishing to make comment on this item. And our first speaker is Judy Strang, to be followed by Kelly McCormick, to be followed by Carol Green. And I understand Judy is not in the room, so we will move on to Kelly McCormick. And we're going to get her started here pretty soon. We need you to unmute yourself.
Sorry, I thought I did that. Can you
Okay.
hear me now?
Yes, we can, whenever you're ready.
Okay, great. This is Kelly McCormick, and I'm a parent, and I work with children and teens in an after-school mentoring program. When the previous city council voted to allow marijuana businesses in Oceanside, residents were told that neighborhoods and youth-serving facilities would be considered sensitive areas and would be protected from having pot businesses next door. Now we are seeing this promise broken again and again as waivers are granted to pot businesses seeking to ignore the distance requirements. This issue is not only about path of travel or physical barriers like trees or a roadway, it's about the greater impact of normalizing marijuana in places where children are likely to live, learn, and play. During this pandemic, we're seeing more kids and teens than ever struggling with depression and anxiety. And when they're exposed to marijuana advertising and marijuana businesses, they're led to believe it's a harmless way to calm their nerves or a recreation. It is not. An addiction treatment specialist recently addressed the link between marijuana and other drug use, saying altering the brain or thinking that some substance is going to make you feel better, that's where the gateway is. We are doing a disservice to our children by pretending that they are not affected by the messaging of the marijuana industry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we did find Judy Strang, so we're going to go back to her. And we are preparing you whenever you're ready. Oh, please unmute yourself. Okay, you're ready to go.
Good evening, City Council. Judy Strang here, grandmother of 6 Oceanside children, and wanting to share with you some concerns I have regarding providing a waiver for this particular project. I would point out that the project we're looking at is actually 2 conditional use permits. And this is a part of a series of waivers that are coming through. And I question this constancy we're going to see where the city has written regulations after great lengthy consideration. And now we're seeing waivers being sought for these regulations. I think it really is sort of disrespectful for the work that went into the ordinances. I realize that this 1,000 feet is somewhat a concern because residential zones butt up against where the CUPs are going to be located, and there's some conversation about there being natural barriers. Well, the intent of the 1,000 feet was never about natural barriers. It's about normalization and residential zones experiencing the impact. The impact that people have been most concerned is about odor. And we now know that in the pipeline, there is an ordinance being considered regarding odor control and what that would entail. But that ordinance isn't under consideration yet. So I'd like to suggest we postpone this waiver consideration until you get your odor ordinance in play so that you have plenty of conversation and you can assure people in the residential zone that their quality of life won't be affected by the smells that will come off the cultivation site. I mentioned in passing that I have 6 grandchildren that live in the area, and they're well aware of this particular location because it's right down the road from the Melba Bishop Skate Park and Community Center. This is used a great deal by my grandchildren, and we're all concerned about the normalization and commercialization for our young people. And this is, I think, is an example of how close this is to where young people congregate and what they might see and what they might think and feel when they see businesses nearby where they like to do their youth activities. Thank you for letting me share these concerns.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Carol Green, to be followed by Carol Jimenez.
Hi, if my internet goes fuzzy, I might take my camera down to make it easier. I urge you to vote no on the conditional use waivers and the conditional use permits and on the waiver today, because we really are sending the wrong message to our children. And I know the previous speakers outlined the normalization, and For anybody who doesn't know what that means that our kids just learn over and over again that it's okay, that this is just a regular way of life. Even though these are supposed to be for adult use only, when our kids, our young people are told over and over again, this is how it is because there's an oversaturation, because there's advertising, and because there are storefronts and grow facilities around. So why do I care about this? As one of the previous speakers mentioned, there is a strong link between THC and the, sorry, this is really hard for me, and the incidence of psychosis. And more information is coming to light about our kids' mental health and the problems with marijuana use, because our kids are told that if they are anxious or worried or stressed out, they should just smoke a little weed. And I know that you've heard this before and you probably don't care, but my son was told by his friends that he should stop taking his anxiety medication prescribed by a doctor and he should smoke a little weed. And right away, very quickly, he had a psychotic break, was hospitalized 3 times. So I'm not talking about a kid that was in and out of drug rehab. I'm talking about someone who smoked a little weed that seemingly was harmless and ended up in 3 different hospitalizations. He got a little bit better, but he died last year as a result of his mental illness, triggered by marijuana use. So please think about the message you're sending our kids. And I had conversations with my son before this ever happened. And he told me, Mom, they're regulating it. They're making sure that it's safe for us. It's okay. This is really, it's safe because the city councils and the county government wouldn't allow this to happen if it wasn't safe. So I just want to let you know, it's not safe. My kid's dead. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Our next speaker is Carol Jimenez, to be followed by Barbara Gordon.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Madam Mayor and members of the City Council, my name is Carol Jimenez, and my residence is actually the closest residence to the proposed project. I believe that more needs to be done to assess the entire environmental impact to the surrounding neighborhoods before a completely informed decision can be made. The Council is meeting again on the 24th regarding cannabis growing odor control. The fact that this meeting is deemed necessary means that environmental impact is a concern and validates the need for a complete study. In addition to odor, environmental noise should also be addressed, as the large extractor fans used in cannabis cultivation generally emit a continuous low hum, which has been compared to the sound of a hovercraft. Simply stating that this will not happen without evidence is insufficient. Also, the CEQA sections referenced in the resolution may not completely remove the reporting requirement, as greenhouse structures are not the issue, and Zen Leaf is not a flower grower. We're here addressing the many challenges faced by communities in close proximity to the cultivation of cannabis and allowing cultivation where it is currently prohibited. Referencing facilities and upgrades doesn't really cross the T's and I's in this instance. We cannot ignore that cultivating cannabis presents very different facility requirements than the agricultural examples listed in the general plan. And remember, this type of facility was not in existence at the time the general plan was approved. Further, the Fort Knox described facility may not meet the general plan wording of very minor intrusion of non-agricultural uses. Granted, agriculture will be taking place inside of this fort, but 4 20,000 square foot plus greenhouses surrounded by a tall fence and illuminated 24 hours a day would be outside of the typical appearance of an agricultural operation. The 24-hour security lighting spread out over 10 acres could also be visible for miles. There is also the predictable negative effect on the surrounding property values, as was experienced by many counties and communities in the states of Washington and Colorado. Cannabis proximity and the potential presence of skunkweed odor must be disclosed to potential buyers. This property value drop can only be avoided if potential buyers are confident that the proximity will not affect their ability to fully enjoy their property, something current residents should also be assured of. I suggest 2 actions. 1, that the council postpones voting on this resolution until at least after the public hearing on March 24th, as the odor requirements should be ironed out before the cultivation project is approved. And 2, that the city revisit the environmental impact reporting and CEQA requirements. Avoiding CEQA reporting in advance may backfire, and the city should attempt to ensure that all potential environmental impacts are addressed, including odor, light, noise, facility appearance, and last but not least, whether there could be a potential negative impact on the Morro Hills development plan. Other cities have traveled this path before and discovered that it's much harder to fight to get these facilities out of their communities than it would have been to thoroughly evaluate the environmental impact beforehand and avoid both the community and grower backlash. That concludes my comments. I hope you will give them your full consideration, and I thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Are there any other speakers?
Yes, we have 3 more speakers left.
I was reminded that we did not hear from the applicant. The applicant has 20 minutes, and perhaps the applicant can take advantage of the comments that have been made to respond. So we do have the applicant online, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And the applicant is Zenleaf LLC, name? Who is representing?
That's correct. This is Gina Austin, and I am representing the applicant, and we'll do the presentation. But
Ms.
we're
Austin.
fine on waiting.
We have 3 more.
We have
comments.
3 more speakers.
Okay, let's hold off on the speakers because they may want to ask questions of things that you might say, Ms. Austin, and then you'll have a chance to respond if you take up less than 20 minutes. You'll have time for rebuttal.
Okay.
So
you would like me to?
You've got 20 minutes and start, and the time will start. Start speaking.
I'm going to share my screen. All right, I think that works. Oh, good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council members and staff. My name is Gina Austin, and I am here along with the applicant and the design team to provide you some information regarding this particular project. This project was originally submitted for a cannabis business permit with the first round of applications back in October of 2018, and we're very excited to be here before you as the very first cultivation project to be approved in the city of Oceanside. It's been a long process, and the city of Oceanside has worked very hard to establish regulations. So while the local permit was issued in September of 2019, the application was originally submitted in October of 2018. There we go. As staff mentioned, this project is located at 5712 North River Road, and it consists of 87,230 square feet of cultivation and nursery. I think it's important to understand why this is 2 different CUPs that are being approved. One is for cultivation and one is for nursery. And while you can generally grow nursery plants to use yourself in propagation, for cultivation, you cannot sell those nursery plants under state law without having a separate nursery license. So in order to sell the small plants to other growers or to wholesale them, you must have a nursery license. And so that's why you're looking at 2 different CUPs, because the city requires 2 separate ones similar to what the state requires. The existing site has been used for agricultural cultivation of ornamental flowers by the Metz family for the past 30 years. It is intended that this activity will continue on the portions of the parcel that are not part of the CUP. I know there was a reference to a park that is nearby by, I believe, Ms. Strang. My understanding is that park is more than a mile away from the proposed location, just to provide some context. So what is going to go on I believe Mr. Domachowski provided a good overview in his slides, but I just wanted to provide ours since it's already here. This area right here, I don't know if you can see my mouse moving or not, that has the white tin roof, that one is the existing nursery facility that will be the immediate operations. These other 3 blue buildings outlined in blue are the relative locations of where the new facilities will go. As you see, they're already agricultural facilities. There's already growth. This is completely an infill project. It's probably the closest infill project that I've done in the over 100 permits that we've had permitted in the state of California, because we do have existing agriculture and we're revisiting these hoop house structures here that are already structures. And you'll see that these will be the new 22,410 square foot each, and this is the existing 20,000. There is some concern about security and children. It's always a concern. I think it's important to note that this is a wholesale facility. It sells to licensed retail facilities and it sells to other cultivators. It does not sell to the public. It's not open to the public. It does not sell to minors. It doesn't advertise to minors. It doesn't provide billboard advertising that you see for some of the retail facilities, because this is a wholesale facility. What it'll have is 24-hour video surveillance, more than 50 cameras per greenhouse, security guard, perimeter fencing, interior and exterior facility lighting that is downlit, not to impact other properties. And if you looked at the conditional use permit, the draft, there's over 117 conditions of approval. A lot of these include the security features like the lighting. There will also be secured storage, electronic card readers to move from place to place. It is a very secure location and will be more secure than what you would normally have in agriculture, just because of the nature of what's being grown. The next biggest concern, I think there's two concerns overall. One is children, one is odor. This particular applicant will be utilizing a state-of-the-art system to mitigate and control odor. The system is designed by FOGCO. It's tested and effective technology utilized by a wide variety of industries across the nation. The picture you see here is where FOGCO is used in a trash or facility, a garbage facility. They have a specially formulated neutralizing solution, and it captures the odors from the fog that comes out of the ceiling in the fog particles, and it filters them through a duct system. That doesn't have any harm to the plants and is very safe and effective in removing the odors. More importantly, the comments about the future odor ordinance that is going to become before the city council, that ordinance, the applicant would still be subject to the new odor ordinance, is willing to add a condition to the conditions of approval that we will be subject to the odor ordinance. It's very, very important that this project moves forward today, or the planting season for this year will be lost. The city of Oceanside will receive no revenue for this year. And that's why it's so important to keep this project moving forward, knowing that if there's future odor control measures that are required by the city of Oceanside, the applicant is willing to abide by those. Community outreach. Normally we would have community meetings, we would go door to door, but obviously COVID prevents us from doing that. So on January 7th, we mailed community outreach flyers to all the neighbors within a 1,500-foot radius. We received 2 comments back on those, both of them operational inquiries, neither of them having any objections. Tonight is the first night that we have ever heard from Ms. Carol Hernandez, who has identified herself as the closest resident. I do not know what property she is referring to. We have not heard from her before. She did not speak out at the the Planning Commission hearing. We're willing to work with her, communicate with her, provide her any additional information that she's looking for, but there's not going to be an impact to the residences that are across the ravine and down the road. Waiver of location requirements. This is the last big elephant in the room. There's been comments, we shouldn't be having waivers from location requirements. That's why we created the zoning ordinance. The zoning ordinance was created with the provision to allow for waiver of location requirements, specifically because we know that agricultural property is often near residential property. And so this provision was intentionally put in there, and to say that we shouldn't be using it defies, the nature of creating the code. So in this instance, the let's see, we have a variety of barriers. We have an agricultural parcel that is between us and the housing residents. We have this additional dense vegetation that prevents somebody from actually walking from one place to another. And we have the San Luis Rey River, all barriers that would prevent somebody from walking directly from the cultivation site or from the residences to the cultivation site. More importantly, you can't see the cultivation site from the residential facility. So the idea for the distance measurements are generally twofold in drafting these resolutions or ordinances. One is to prevent the mix of uses right next to each other, a residence right next to a dispensary. They find that that would be inconsistent generally with zoning ordinances. To prevent children from, prevent them from being right next to dispensaries, from being right next to daycares and preschools and other schools. But they're not designed simply to just ensure that nobody can be located anywhere within a particular jurisdiction. They're designed to provide a certain measure of distance. And I think in this instance, we did a very good job of selecting a property and a location that is currently used for agriculture, designed for agriculture, and will continue to be used as agriculture. Cannabis cultivation is an agricultural crop. You can see it's over 4 miles to walk either way around or to drive to get to the nearest residential facility. And so for these reasons, we're requesting a waiver of the location requirements, because each one of the elements that you are required to find in order to make the waiver can be met. So finally, I will conclude by just requesting your approval of this project in its entirety, because each of the CUP findings can be made. There was a little bit of a mention as to CEQA. I believe the CEQA exemption is proper, and that the CEQA exemptions can also be made. We're available for questions, and then hopefully any rebuttal if there's any comments from the additional speakers. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Austin. And you have 9
9:45.
Excuse me, 9 minutes, 45 seconds left for rebuttal. For rebuttal. There you go. There's my deep voice. Okay, so we have 3 more people, 3 more.
That is correct.
All right, let's hear from them.
Our next speaker is Barbara Gordon, to be followed by Peggy Walker, to be followed by Erica Leary. And we're getting Ms. Gordon on.
Okay, thank you, City Council, for letting me speak tonight. The decisions by City Council are important and have implications to Oceanside residents. Your distance requirements for marijuana businesses are 1,000 feet from residential and use-sensitive areas were made because of the negative impacts these businesses can have in a community. From your own staff report, this proposed business is only 68 feet to the nearest residential district and 200 feet from another marijuana business, which seems problematic. Every marijuana business that has come before you has been granted a waiver of location. Why have a district requirement if you're not going to follow your own policies and grant a waiver for these businesses? This seems like a slippery slope. Property values, like we've heard, can be affected by high-risk businesses. What takes place in the surrounding communities needs to be a priority for all city decisions. At one point, does it become oversaturated with marijuana businesses? The purpose of these restrictions is to ensure public health, safety, and general welfare of those living near the projects. Oceanside residents are counting on you to have their best interest and not the marijuana industry. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Peggy Walker, but she doesn't seem to be in the room, so we're going to move on to our next public comment from Erica Leary.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay, great. Thank you. My name's Erica Leary. I'm the program manager for the North Coastal Prevention Coalition and also a resident of Oceanside. I'd like to remind you for over a year back in 2017, the city had a marijuana ad hoc committee to bring marijuana businesses to Oceanside. And while I don't necessarily have a strong position on this particular application, other than the stated concerns about ongoing locational waivers, I would like to suggest that maybe you consider an ad hoc committee to evaluate marijuana risks and ensure adequate protections are in place, both for youth to prevent access, as well as black market and other concerns that may result as marijuana businesses expand in Oceanside. Are you aware that the Bureau of Cannabis Control has still not developed any protocols to conduct compliance checks to make sure marijuana is not sold to minors? We have looked throughout the county for local law enforcement agencies that have done compliance checks and have not found any to do what they do for alcohol and tobacco businesses. Just last week, the DEA released their 2020 drug threat assessment. There's a section on marijuana, just like there is for fentanyl, cocaine, meth, prescription drugs, and others. Included are statements such as many polycrime and polydrug organizations are involved in domestic marijuana production, often establishing large-scale illicit grow operations in states that have legalized marijuana. State-approved medical marijuana is diverted to the illicit market in several ways. This creates opportunities for criminals looking to exploit state legalization while presenting challenges for law enforcement. Also, the 2018 Farm Bill legalizing hemp production at the federal level has further challenged law enforcement. And we heard at the Planning Commission meeting on Monday that we have hemp farms here in Oceanside. Investigations in some states in which marijuana production is legal under state law have revealed a significant number of hemp businesses and grow operations that are owned and operated by members of drug trafficking organizations, illegally producing and trafficking marijuana. This is just one of many concerns that we will likely face as these businesses expand in Oceanside. And I would just like you to consider putting in place strong protections and protocols for all of these risks with a special focus on preventing youth access, as was so emotionally and passionately expressed by Carol Green. Thank you very much for your attention and your service to Oceanside.
Thank you.
That concludes the public comment.
Thank you. Ms. Austin, you have 9 minutes, 45 seconds left. Would you like to address any other issues?
Two statements. I'll make them brief so that we can move on. One, with regard to Ms. Leary's comments about BCC not having a process for compliance checks. I think it's important and it's confusing, but cultivation facilities are not regulated by the BCC. They're regulated by this CDFA, the California Department of Food and Ag. And the CDFA does do compliance checks very regularly. Mr. Beauchart, the primary applicant for Zenleaf, is an experienced operator. He has facility operating in the city of San Diego. It has been operating for almost 2 years now. It was one of the first licensed cultivation facilities. It's indoor within the city of San Diego. He's had multiple inspections by CDFA, the most recent one occurring just a couple weeks ago with no violations. So he is an experienced and compliant operator, and it's not open to the public. And so I think that's important. And I just wanted to stress that one more time, but we're here to answer any questions that you have. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Did staff want to make any further comments before closing this part of the public hearing? No, looks like no. Okay, I'm going to close this portion of the public hearing. I did have one question, though. There was a comment having to do with respect to the 1,000-foot separation. Would you like to come forward? Thank you. The distance requirement, and the staff report does state that there are 515 feet from a residential district. However, the nearest home within that district is over 1,000 feet. Is that correct? Is that?
That is correct.
Okay. Do you know how far it is? You said over 1,000. Is it
I believe a close estimate is about 1,100 feet
Okay.
From that, the backyard fence to the property line of the project site.
Okay, and I had another question. There was a reference to an event happening on the 24th, or some kind of a hearing on the 24th with respect to CEQA or something. Do you know what they were referring to? A couple of people referenced 24th. Was it the Planning Commission?
I think I can answer that, perhaps.
Wasn't in the staff report.
There's several cannabis-related items coming to you on the 24th. There's a program update. There is a separate item, a public hearing to establish inspection and renewal fees for local licenses. And there's also a proposed amendment to the city code to implement specific odor control requirements. The present CUP is conditioned to comply with all applicable city code requirements. So any city code requirement the CUP would be subject to.
Okay, so they would be able to come, speak, and address those proposed rules, which would then be applicable to this applicant.
As to the odor control requirements, yes. But there'll be all three of those separate items. I believe it's anticipated for the 24th, although the agenda won't print till tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. And
yeah, sorry.
All right, Councilmember Rodriguez.
First, I just want to acknowledge the public speakers and their concerns. I'm a father of 7, and it's heart-jerking to hear those testimonies and those stories. And so thank you for having the courage to come on and speak. I do want to acknowledge that it appears with respect to the odor, that will all have to be enforced and complied with by the business. Cannabis is a legal crop to grow in the state of California. And so I'm a farmer. I support all legal crops that are available to grow in California. I drive by this location every day. My kids use the park and the skate park at least 3 times a week at Melba Bishop. And I have no concern whatsoever because we have local regulation, local control, and it is a proficient process, unlike the black market or illicit market. That's the culprit. That's where the bad statistics are coming from. That's how our children are getting these products in their hands, the gummy bears, the flavored scents, all the dynamics that our youth are experiencing is coming from the black market. And the only way we're going to combat the black market is through having local regulation, and hopefully the state will get on board with lower taxation so we can compete with the black market that is 75% of the transactions going on, whether we like it or not. So we have the funding and the resources to educate our children, to work with the school district, to do sting operations, to remove the bad actors off of Oceanside streets. So I'm going to make a motion to move approval on this item, but I definitely wanted to just support the parents and the concerned constituents.
Thank you. Councilmember Weiss.
Yeah, I have a question for staff. The applicant's representative indicated that through the public outreach process, they received 2 comments, and yet we had 8. How many people spoke at the Planning Commission hearing on this?
Councilmember Weiss, we had 3 speakers at the Planning Commission.
Okay, thank you. I echo whether I personally support or agree with cannabis. It is a legal crop here in California, and I will second the motion.
Thank you. Councilmember Jensen.
Yes, I just had one question as to if there is any indication as to the type of business that's going on there. Is there any signage or anything visible from the street that kids or anybody driving by would be able to recognize what is going on in that location?
Councilmember Jensen, the on-site signage is prohibited, so the facility cannot advertise what their facility is.
Excellent, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. No other comments? Okay, the report did state that Zenleaf was granted a local license for cultivation back on September 1st, 2019. The odor seems to be a big question, and that is going to be directly addressed either at the March 24th council meeting or soon thereafter. So Deputy Mayor Keim, did you have some comments?
Just quickly, it's just a quick one for staff. If there are issues, so if we find out there's an odor or other issues, how robust is the process to address that? I mean, will that be a challenge of dealing with, or I mean, will it be difficult to do that once this has been granted?
Councilmember Keim, my understanding is the new draft ordinance will have some additional protocol that specifically addresses the odor control and the protocol for enforcing that. Perhaps Mr. Mullen may have some additional.
It is a conditional use permit, so it would be.
It is, but I want to remind everyone that we have a dual licensing structure that we developed in Oceanside. So we both have the Oceanside City Code, Chapter 7 requirements, as well as the CUP. What that means for the local licenses, it has to be renewed annually. And so if there are problems associated with any aspect of the operation, it could also be addressed through the annual review of the local license and not necessarily have to go through a revocation process of the CUP, although that's an option too. But I think the more expeditious route would be to address problems as they come up and certainly through the annual review of the local license.
Thank you, Mr. Mullen. I just think it's important for staff to make sure we stay on top of it and address any concerns as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. I did like and appreciate the recommendations by Ms. Erica Leary in terms of having some kind of a committee where people can speak and discuss some potential issues and hopefully resolve. Okay, no other comments, please vote.
Motion approved, 5-0.
Okay, next. We have 2 items left on the agenda. Next is Mayor and our council member items. Item number 24, request by council members Rodriguez and Jensen to discuss Oceanside's growing homeless crisis and direction to staff to take emergency action to bring relief to impacted communities. And I do note that we have a memo from our city manager dated today, update on homelessness initiatives. Councilmember Rodriguez?
Did you want to do public comment first? I know we have several speakers.
No, let's go ahead and have your presentation.
We currently have 28 speakers on this item.
Yeah.
All right, so presentation first?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Very, very important item. I asked to get this item put on the agenda because the election season's over, and I think we all made promises to address the top concern in our city, and that's homelessness. And over the last year and a half, we've brought forth items, and for one reason or another, COVID, et cetera, it's understandable. The issue has only compounded, and so I thought it was appropriate to get this on the agenda so that I can speak, but also my colleagues, and as a team representing our community, we can really try to bring some resolve and relief both to the homeless population and the impacted communities. So I'm going to read a statement. As a city, it is time to take a bold stand for the vulnerable members of our community who are living on the streets and in their cars and provide meaningful solutions that will help them rebuild their lives. State and federal policies have mandated that all funding allocation to local cities and to address homelessness must follow the Housing First approach. The Housing First model has been researched and proven effective, but is intended for a very specific and narrow population that suffer from mental illness and are resistant to treatment, which makes it difficult to maintain stable housing. The principles of Housing First suggest that municipalities and service providers must provide housing for people without any preconditions or expectations, meaning you cannot deny people housing for any reason, and you cannot require anything from them after they have received the housing. There is an assumption that once someone is safely housed, they will then have the clarity and ability to begin to address other challenges in their life that led to becoming homeless, such as mental illness, addiction, trauma, criminal behavior, loss of family, lack of employment, disconnection from mainstream society, whatever it may be. This approach is presented as compassionate. It is described as low barrier and intended to quickly get people into permanent housing that is paid for with taxpayer funding. If they are actively using drugs, that is considered perfectly acceptable. It does not allow for any sort of drug testing, background check, or requirement to accept treatment or supportive services. Come as you are and stay as you are. Recently, city staff has released a notice of funding availability, which is tied to some state funding, permanent local housing allocation, as well as an RFP. And I've presented to the city clerk, also the city manager's office, some items that I see that conflict, that I believe do not align with this council's direction on mitigating the issue. And, but you know, I would like to see the potential of an addendum to those documents so that we can include a broader spectrum of available nonprofits so we can really target this issue and get to the bottom of it and not just replicate what has failed over and over in multiple jurisdictions up and down our state. According to a report provided at a recent city budget committee meeting by the interim director of the Department of Homelessness and Supportive Housing in San Francisco, it costs San Francisco $5,000 per tent every month to house homeless people in multiple parking lots across the city, which is $61,000 per year for each tent. More than 2.5 times the average price of a one-bedroom apartment there. According to the San Francisco Chronicle, the program called Safe Sleeping Villages has cost the city $16.1 million since it started at the beginning of the pandemic. We can no longer support spending taxpayer funds for programs like this that are not achieving the results we expect to see and are ultimately allowing people on the street to continue to suffer. Many of you read the recent article highlighting the city of Oceanside and the trauma-informed Safe Center of tents along Oceanside Boulevard in our own city. Let me make something very clear. A tent is not a home. It is not trauma-informed. It is not a safe center. It is not therapeutic, and it is not humane. I could not believe the comments I read from some members of our community who claim to have compassion for our homeless neighbors. This is not compassionate. Compassion is believing our homeless neighbors are capable of change. Compassion is helping them rediscover their dignity and self-worth. Compassion is accountability and having a community that will support you in that accountability. We must stop trying to make homelessness more comfortable for people. We must help them grow beyond this current moment in their life, beyond their addiction, beyond their trauma and pain. We must help them reconnect with their purpose in life, with their family, and to develop a sense of community again. Sadly, we know that many homeless individuals are drawn back to the streets because of that sense of community. If we continue to believe that solving homelessness is achieved through getting them into a house, and we do not acknowledge it requires accountability and a therapeutic community, we will fail. I will not fail this community. I will not fail the people who are suffering on the streets. Today, I am proposing we do something different than what has sadly become the status quo. I already discussed the RFP and the NOFA, which I strongly encourage my colleagues to spend time with staff and their own private counsel on really getting this right, on our clear expectations to solve the homelessness problem and not just default or copy NOFAs and RFPs from other cities just because that's how they did it. I am proposing we either pull back both documents or make modifications or addendums. We only get one chance to get this right. So with that being said, I spent the larger part of the last 2 years since being elected trying to work on this issue and solving it. I won't go into detail on all of those accounts. I can tell you, I'm speaking from a perspective of experience. I came from an abusive home, and my mother would flee with me and my sister, and we actually spent a lot of time in shelters as a child. Some of my first memories I remember were in a Catholic church shelter. And growing up, I became homeless as a young man, as a youth, for a short period of time, about 6 months. So I understand the hopelessness, I understand the fears, the taste, the smells. And so I'm speaking from that perspective, along with what I've learned over the last 2 years. And as a part of that, I want to offer some suggestions, some ideas that we can talk about on the dais. And the goal is to give direction to staff to come back in the next 45 days with a plan based on our ideas here. And, you know, feel free to use some of my suggestions. I'm not the genesis of ideas. I've actually taken this from many other programs that I think have worked, including what we've done here in the city. On the screen, if you want to go ahead and put that up. Is it on for everybody to see? All right, cable's showing me. Okay, there we go. So it's an Oceanside hybrid voucher pilot program. The goal of this is to be a pilot program. I would like to see a 180-day pilot of this so we could really weigh in on the pros and the cons and make it better. I think this pilot program would focus on 3 important objectives: create emergency shelter for those experiencing unsheltered homelessness in Oceanside, link participants through HOT to a nonprofit provider for housing and services in a hotel room setting, test a program that emphasizes successful outcomes such as referrals to drug treatment and detox, permanent housing placement, successful diversion efforts, and increased stability and sufficiency, and get them out of a tent. Expected outcomes of the pilot program. This program is just a pilot to see what it takes to determine the type of shelter needs best suited for Oceanside. We will gain invaluable insight on how best to serve our community before moving on a permanent shelter. I've heard estimates from staff and my colleagues that it can take anywhere from a year to 3 years before we are even in a position to open the shelter. So what's going to happen between now and then with these individuals and families on the street? It's going to reduce street homelessness by incentivizing providers that produce successful outcomes. I think that's key. As a council, we need to give clear policy to the city manager that, hey, the nonprofits we work with, we expect results. Even to the point of, hey, let's pay for results or incentives for results. What does that look like? And identify that. Strike balance between, what's that?
You are over your time. Please wrap up your comments.
Okay. So I have the remaining of that on here, but in essence, I think we can replicate what looks like it was pretty successful we did with Interfaith, and they had pretty manageable rules, and it looks like we got 19 individuals off the street into permanent housing in that short window, and I would like to see us replicate that and come back in the next 45 days with a plan.
That was 40 seconds over, actually. We have some comments.
Yes, we have
from the
28 public
right, and
registered on this.
we don't have a motion, but we'll go ahead and hear from the public since they've been waiting to be heard.
2 minutes?
What was that?
Do we give them 2 minutes?
You said 28?
28.
Yeah, 2 minutes, please.
Okay. All right. With that, our first speaker is John Seymour, to be followed by Joe Hill, to be followed by A.J. Galka Gunyeo.
Thank you, and I want to just restate what was just said, and that is because we have 28 speakers, we're going to ask you to, although we generally have 3 minutes for each person to speak, we're asking people to cut that time down to 2 minutes. We do want to hear from you. And if you hear me say 10 seconds, that's asking you to wrap up your comments. Thank you very much, and please call the first person, Mr. Navarro.
Mr. Seymour, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm John Seymour from National Community Renaissance. I've been working with National Corps since 1997 and been involved in the creation of over 3,000 high-quality apartment homes for homeless, veterans, seniors, families, kids aging out of the foster care system, et cetera. And we own and manage about 10,000 apartment homes with 4 outstanding properties in Oceanside, 2 on Mission Cove, La Mission Village, and Cape Cod Senior. Those are a mix of seniors, frail elderly, kids out of the foster care system at risk of homelessness as well. I have to say that it's my qualified opinion that the city has an extreme robust program to address homelessness, permanent supportive housing, and shelters. And solving homelessness challenge is ongoing. The council received numerous reports this year alone on their homeless programs. As early as February 23rd, the city staff presented the council with the Public Housing Agency Plan. On January 29th, staff gave council another presentation on the homeless programs. On September 9th, city staff gave council presentation on a housing strategy, which prioritized shelters and permanent supportive housing. The council voted unanimously on that housing strategy and to issue that request for proposal to the private sector. That RFP was issued 9 days ago, with proposals due on April 16th and to city council on the 16th. And that RFP, in my humble opinion, should not be revised, diverted, changed. It was adopted unanimously by the council. Lastly, the funds that Councilmember Rodriguez is stating, those funds, if they're not going to be part of the RFP and are sent out for what he's talking about.
Mr. Seymour, please wrap up your comments.
Yes, it is very short-sighted. You will get no leverage, and those monies will never return to the city under the city's loan payment program. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just really quickly, if anybody is in the Zoom call logged in under a different name than the registered, please log in with your real name. For the next item, there's about 5 people that just say Prince Park, and it's going to make it very difficult for the city clerk to call the speakers. And also, you had to be registered by 4 o'clock. We can't take people that are just raising their hands and making motions on the cameras. So our next speaker is Joe Hill, to be followed by AJ Galka Gunyeu. Mr. Hill, whenever you're ready.
Hello again, City Council, Honorable Mayor. 3 points. Let's make sure that we follow the RFP and the NOFA plans and rules that are in place for selecting proposed shelter operators. No personal favorites, no special games being played. Let's do it right and make it work. Second, the City Council needs to increase developer in lieu fees. And you need to do it now. You can do it anytime you want, but we need the money for something special like this. Let the developers pay more money. We're very low. Third point, sometimes critical projects like this one dictate where normal timelines and dates have to be accelerated. I think this is a project that is in that category. You know, we did warp speed on the vaccines. Let's try to do warp speed on this project and move the dates up and get it done. And Mr. Rodriguez, you can't compare Oceanside to San Francisco. And lastly, congratulations, City Council. We now have another $1 million cannabis business paying the lowest tax rates possible in our city. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Our next public comments from AJ Galka Gunyeu. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that, to be followed by Nicholas Weber.
No worries. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm AJ Galka Gunyeu, Director of Permanent Supportive Housing. I work for Hope Through Housing Foundation and National Corps. I've been working with the homeless and housing service sector for almost 2 decades. decades and part of numerous initiatives where focuses change from here and there, what's ideal and what's most cost effective. In general, Housing First allows folks with things like credit issues, medical debt, past evictions, and other things like domestic violence to be able to get pardons to go directly into housing. It provides space of love and grace to get folks into their own home where wraparound services are provided to the person and or family. This is empowering, ethical, and the more cost-effective way, no bouncing from motel to shelter and so forth. And this is ultimately the end point. Someone can stabilize for years to come. The main things to focus on is general affordable housing for Oceanside, vulnerable housing populations. For those experiencing homelessness are imperative for Oceanside. I actually pulled some data from Regional Task Force, a 90-day poll of those folks that are active in the system, and I came up with 220 more individuals for Q4 of 2020. It showed that we have a huge aging vulnerable population. 44% of the homeless population that was active within the data poll were ages 45 to 65 plus. More specifically, 27% was ages 55 plus. These folks need safe, quality, affordable housing in their communities. Note, I also pulled your U.S. Census report from 2000, showed over 21,859 people, 14% of 65 years or older. That's 39% of those who have a disability. Veterans, 23%, youth and younger adults, 18% of that 90-day poll. And with respect to the noted data, I commend you for having Ordinance 14C6D of the Municipal Code regarding the Housing and Lucy Inclusionary Fund, totaling over $5 million. To simply put, this is to produce much needed affordable housing within our wonderful city of Oceanside. I implore you to ensure this funding and the RFP is utilized
Please wrap
for
up your
affordable
comments.
housing.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I couldn't say your last name, sorry.
Our next comments from Nicholas Weber, to be followed by Ken Layton.
Hi, City Council. I'm absolutely in favor of both temporary and permanent shelter, as well as pursuing affordable housing in nature in the future, as the plans have outlined. But a shelter doesn't work for everyone and won't work for everyone. What Councilman Rodriguez is proposing is ham-fisted and will do more harm than good. This would be an act against their freedom. It would establish that they're less deserving of self-determination because they're poor. Councilman Rodriguez said that hotel vouchers, which I would call a Band-Aid at best, could provide police a way to cite homeless people who are uncooperative. I read that as submit to his decision or be fined and possibly arrested, which counterintuitively could hurt their ability to find housing in the future, especially without housing first perspective. This is simply finding a way to criminalize a problem rather than solving one. Councilman Rodriguez criticized the mayor's comment that the Camp on Wheels location looked pretty good. This location sprung from the community responding to a need the city has yet to meet. They keep a clean, safe, and trauma-informed camp, a great example for the community. By seeking greater enforcement, you will only chase the problem around town, creating a greater mess and more of the public dissatisfaction with that appearance. Assuming a shelter will be a cure-all reveals there was no dialogue with the houseless community. He says the tents are inhumane. To me, this shows an out-of-touchness with the community. I speak with them every week. I work with them every week. Tents can provide a sense of dignity that often shelters can't. Shelters, you are often stuck around other people struggling with a lot of problems, which can make that unsafe for yourself. This approach is out of touch and without empathy and is only prescribing from your privileged position.
10 seconds left.
Thank you. He says that we're saying that Housing First is assuming they can fix their problems as soon as they're in housing. I take the opposite perspective, that the problems won't be solved without housing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Ken Layton, to be followed by Larry Cornett, to be followed by Jane Marshall. All right.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Ken Layton speaking for myself. Mr. Rodriguez, you spoke about a plan that you have, yet anyone who reads the article that you talked to or anyone who looked at this week's item number 24 will see there is no plan. Just a blank page. The fact is, Mr. Rodriguez, everyone knows that the letter you wrote filled with outrage on city stationery was written at the command of your political boss, Chris Megason, the same Chris Megason who brought 2 busloads of clients to pack the council chambers to speak on behalf of North River Farms. Mr. Megason will do whatever it takes to get his solutions for change to get funded by new taxpayer money, even as he claims that Solutions operates free of public money. He desperately wants Solutions to get the contract to deal with Oceanside homeless so that he and his wife can continue to get their $2,500 a year salary. And Mr. Rodriguez will happily be the cheerleader who will claim that Megason's Solutions for Change is the only way to help the homeless. The fact is, there are other groups with other philosophies who have successful track records. Nonprofits who will all get along with each other and who aren't run by a self-promoting bully who can pay himself $250,000. Mr. Rodriguez, please stop the drama. Please stop embarrassing us with letters sent out on city stationery that are only there to prop up your mutually beneficial association with a self-promoting hack who has isolated himself from everyone else in the homeless field. In other words, please stop with the letters that are dictated to you by Chris Megason. Megason's power-hungry, money-grubbing, my way or the highway behavior has caused Solutions for Change to be operated like a cult, independent of all the other good and decent agencies and volunteers that Megason says on the record are worthless and completely ineffective. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next public speaker is Larry Cornett, to be followed by Jane Marshall, to be followed by Cindy Davenport.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. The first thing I wanted to say is anyone who believes that a nonprofit cannot make a profit and can't line their pockets is an absolute fallacy. What is homelessness and what does it mean? Personally, I will be acting as the chairman of the Ad Hoc Committee on Homelessness for the Housing Commission, and we will have our report 6 months from today. Or hopefully sooner. This also disappointed me in not being able to approve new commissioners at this meeting. Criminalization creates a circular firing squad, and the first thing that we need to do is understand that any person who is homeless is a human being. All facilities, including ones that the city opens, must have the wraparound services to reduce recidivism. I am concerned personally about certain organizations, specifically certain nonprofit organizations, having the ability to cherry pick those who come through their doors. Also, there has to be a plan that if there is someone who may have to exit a program, they must be given shelter and not just kick them out where they go back to the streets. I also find that the main issue that I'm hearing is not helping those who need help. But I do not want to see the mess, and I do not want to see the garbage, and I don't want to see the encampment. There are people who can afford to be addicts and alcoholics, and they are not an eyesore. We need to work toward humane shelters with wraparound services. The city has the funds to do it. We need to increase the in lieu of fees, and we need to put them to work for our homeless citizens and their homeless citizens. Thank you, Honorable Mayor and City Council.
Thank you.
Our next public comments from Jane Marshall, to be followed by Cindy Davenport, to be followed by Vanessa Graziano. Ms. Marshall, whenever you're ready.
Good evening, Mayor, Council members. Jane Marshall, 30-year resident. I'm an investor. I'm an active community volunteer. I, like many, are not happy with the homeless camping on our city streets. Our grave concerns are about setting a precedent and the health outbreaks like what happened in San Diego a few years ago with the Hep A virus outbreak because they had not proper sanitation. Talking to the city staff, I understand there's a lot in progress already, and they're following various protocols that they need to follow. But some of those activities include additional homeless outreach team members, 2 officers in a vehicle, a crime suspension team downtown, an additional social worker for the hot team, and also a homeless diversion prevention and reunification program, contracting sober services, and homeless hiring program. This has already spent $1 million in this effort. The city is working on a voucher program currently and also working on creating alternative housing with the new transitional housing at El Camino Real and Oceanside Boulevard near the fire station. I am as impatient as the next Oceansider to see folks properly accommodated. Yet I must implore you to stop making this a political mud fight, as shown recently in newspapers and social media. Please set aside your personal issues, work together to streamline staff's progress on this important human, civic, health, and safety issue. And please, please, please communicate to everyone in the community what you're doing. Please ensure any contracts that go for any services go through a very public process and not based on any campaign donations or other pet service providers. We need our leaders to cooperate, to coordinate, and communicate on this and all these issues for the sake of Oceanside, for everyone who lives here. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from Cindy Davenport, to be followed by Vanessa Graziano, to be followed by Diane Wilkie. Cindy, whenever you're ready. Oh, you just need to unmute yourself.
Finally, I think I did it.
Yep.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council members. Speaking on this item about homelessness, previous speakers have talked about increasing the in lieu fees paid by developers. That makes a lot of sense. But I'm wondering if we can consider other options too. I wonder if we can hold one or more public workshops on homelessness so that we can work together. This could be an efficient way to look at the facts together and come up with solutions together. Recently, when workshops were held about the El Corazon Site 1 park planning, there was a record turnout. The workshops have been held on Zoom, and even though there are some drawbacks, it seems like more people can get involved with the flexibility which remote meetings can provide. We really do not need our leaders publicly criticizing each other. Instead, we need more civic action in our community, and the issue of homelessness needs to be addressed, and public workshops could be helpful to all. Not every resident has the time or even internet access to read what the City of Oceanside is doing about homelessness on its website, which includes a comprehensive homeless strategy dated June 2019. We've heard that staff members are working on a plan to provide temporary shelter until the permanent emergency shelter at the site of the former Ocean Shores High School is ready to be open. Could we not have brief updates at council meetings or press conferences monthly about the progress of these plans, in addition to public workshops? I believe the staff is working hard. I'm not sure it's helpful to give staff another action item now on this without first looking at all the facts about what is already being done. Regarding nonprofits,
please wrap up your comments.
I want to caution against the city working with nonprofits who have donated to elected officials' campaigns. There should be an ethical and fair bidding process, and also discussion about housing first guidelines. I ask that you work together, not unilaterally. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Vanessa Graziano, to be followed by Diane Wilkie, to be followed by Eileen Costa.
Hi, blessings, and thank you, Honorable Mayor and Council, for having me here today. I can't seem to get my video to work. I'm sorry. My name is Vanessa Graziano, and I'm the founder of the Oceanside Homeless Resource. I wanted to share my heart. I grew up in Carlsbad, and I'm a single mom of 3 amazing kids, and I've lived in Oceanside for 18 years. I suffered with homelessness and addiction in my early 30s, and I do have 6 years clean off meth. I created the Oceanside Homeless Resource as a group on Facebook 2 years ago because I really wanted to lead with love and light and bridge our community's hearts. It's important to show our community what happens when you bring purpose, community, food, shelter, hope, compassion, and God's love. Every single person out there is unique to the trauma that has led them there, and it is our job to meet them where they're at. When you remind someone of their self-worth, their hearts do change. In May 2020, we became a nonprofit, and we have privately ran a shelter that allows 25 rooms at a time. We have families, seniors, veterans, and individuals working forward with case managers in the county and the city and housing and different organizations to really make this happen. We work with recovery and detox programs, and we're bringing in wraparound services and case management along with supportive services every day. We need to address our mental health and create a pathway and understand that all individuals are unique, again, to the trauma that led them here. Again, when we're talking about the individuals down at the tent on Oceanside Boulevard, please stop seeing the tents and see the people inside. It's so very important. Rodney truly is trying to create a safe spot in a very unsafe environment, and it's time for us as a community to step up, bring our hearts, and make a difference. And I do want to say that I appreciate the City of Oceanside for coming on board and helping our shelter and providing lunch with the Oceanside Kitchen Collaborative. And we work with Humanity Showers and Sunny Street Outreach to bring showers and humanity back to our people. So again, I just hope that we can work together and we can create housing and we can create programs.
10
and really
seconds left.
Thank you so much. And I also support a tiny home community, and I just would love to work with all of you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Diane Wilkie, to be followed by Eileen Costa, to be followed by Esme Cruz.
Thank you. Mr. Rodriguez, you have had over 2 years to come up with a plan and make progress with the homeless in our community. I'm asking you as a D2 resident to please stop the grandstanding. Please stop the violent outbursts. We're not interested in the type of events that you colluded to create and came to a head on 6 November 2019. I'm not seeing where you have the necessary skill set to manage the funding or a program development and management necessary to address this extremely important humanitarian effort. Ms. Jensen is a new arrival to Oceanside, no background in community activism, administration, or effective financial management. What you need to understand is, at a minimum, we need to have licensed social workers with advanced degrees and extensive experience as a necessary component for such a program. Your experience as a counselor does not qualify you for such an undertaking. The current plan underway is the most expeditious. Please do not deviate from it. Stay the course. This is not the time for game playing. It is not the time for political posturing. Mayor Sanchez, council members Keim and Weiss, I would also encourage you to contact the liaison at Marine Corps Station Camp Pendleton and include Representative Mike Levin and begin to explore the federal involvement for development of a veterans home in Oceanside. They too have the skill sets and the proven records of staying the course. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next public comment is from Eileen Costa, to be followed by Esme Cruz, to be followed by Sandra Sanchez. Ms. Costa, whenever you're ready.
Okay, my name is Eileen Costa, and I'm a member of the Ad Hoc Committee for the Homeless for Oceanside's Housing Committee. I've worked with the homeless for approximately 3 years, maybe a little more, having breakfast with them at Brother Benno's and helping them afterwards to find resources to resolve their problems, whether they were financial or housing or whatever. I noticed that there's 3 types of homeless, and I'd like to address the one type of homeless that is underserved, and that's the single men and women. There's no place for them in the city of Oceanside. It's easy to become homeless because of loss of job, illness, divorce, disability from an accident. They need a place to be safe and a place where they can work on their skills so that they can get a job and become a functioning member of society. In order to achieve this, what I would like to suggest is that Oceanside have a building that they own rather than just put them in a hotel with no services. This building would have them want to come, want to be there, and sign a contract of how they were going to get themselves out of homelessness. What can they do for a job, and how are they going to achieve it? And how long will that take? So they would have a timeline and they would have a plan of action. They would have shared duties at this facility. The facility would have them in a single room that they could lock so their possessions would be theirs and they would be safe. If they go to school, they could study in that room. It would be a shared kitchen and a community
10 seconds left.
Shower, bathroom. We would also have a social worker, a counselor, a doctor and nurse, and a security guard.
Ms. Costa, can you please wrap up your comments?
Sure. And this would make sure that there was no alcohol or drugs being used, and any problems would be identified and they would be able to help them on their journey to wholeness. I think it would be less expensive for Oceanside to own a building rather than just pass out the vouchers for the hotel, especially if the program would enable them to become skilled enough to get a job and go out on their own.
Thank you.
So it would be recycled. The rooms.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our next public comment is from Esme Cruz, but we are unable to find them in the room. Our next speaker then will be Sandra Sanchez, to be followed by Alma Rodriguez, to be followed by Coyote Nopal.
Did you say Coyote?
Yes. Coyote Nopal?
Okay.
Yeah. Sandra, if you could unmute yourself.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Councilmember Rodriguez, you continue to show all of us how evil you are. First of all, your little webinar yesterday was a joke. You chose your panelists perfectly. White, privileged, and none of them actually experiencing houselessness during a pandemic. You said earlier that a tent is not a home and it is not a safe space. Why do you get to speak for houseless folks while you eat $200 dinners and flip houses in Oceanside for a profit? You are disgusting and value your own pockets over people's livelihoods. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next public speaker is Alma Rodriguez, to be followed by Coyote Nopal, to be followed by Trevor Salazar. And we can't find Alma Rodriguez. Alma Rodriguez is not in the room. Again, if you are signing in to Zoom, please sign in with the name you registered with. So we'll move on to the next public comment from Coyote Nopal. And you should be good to go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. My name is Coyote. I'm an activist here in Oceanside. I live in Oceanside. I work in Oceanside, and I want to thrive in Oceanside. And I desire these things for all of my neighbors, including the houseless population. The truth is that many of us here are closer to being homeless than we are to owning homes. Rodriguez's plan is an uneducated and authoritarian attempt to not address the issue of homelessness, but to push it out of view. He wants people punished by citation or arrest, not for cooperating with his plan. Locking homeless people up does not house them, but it does conveniently get them out of sight. This does not help the homeless. What this does is give police in the city more power to oppress homelessness. If 2020 taught us anything, is that the police cannot be trusted to enforce law without causing trauma. A video just came out today of an SDPD officer doing this. Letting police handle the situation will only result in more violence towards our homeless neighbors. That leads to more trauma, which then reinforces the problem instead of solving it. Rodriguez and Jensen are not concerned with homelessness, but with vanity. They care more about how our city looks than the lives of people who live in it. You don't like seeing tents on the street? Then maybe think about how rich outside developers drive up the cost of living here in Oceanside. That's the real adversary. I would like to point out Rob McGowan and Camp on Wheels, who understand the issues of homelessness and want to address it. Camp on Wheels is the only trauma-informed care being provided to people in Oceanside, a practice which has been proven highly effective, and they want to make that illegal. Their ignorance is infuriating. What Mr. Rodriguez fails to understand, among many things, is the point of trauma-informed care. Those tents that he speaks so maliciously towards are not permanent solutions, but homelessness is an incredibly difficult situation to pull oneself out of, and Housing First, taking care of the situation, helps that.
You've got 10 seconds left.
I think I will leave with this. If a place to sleep comes at the cost of liberty and self-determination, then is it really safety or just a shiny new set of chains? All power to all people. I am finished.
Thank you.
Our next public comment was from Trevor Salazar, but he is not in the room, so we're going to move on to Paul Hawkins, to be followed by Ala Pereira, to be followed by Kai Simovich. Mr. Hawkins, whenever you're ready.
I believe you're.
Yeah, you need to unmute yourself.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi there. I'm Paul Hawkins. I'm a retired firefighter paramedic, and I'm not going to tell you everything that I've done with homeless people, but just suffice it to say I've seen it from the street level for all of my life. You guys have mentioned Rodney McGough's safe site tent camp, and I got involved with him when I was volunteering a few months ago, trying to prevent the outbreak of sepsis amongst our homeless people. And sepsis is a disease or a condition where basically, if you don't know what it is, it's where the contents of a septic tank are circulating around in a person's bloodstream. In fact, it is the leading cause of death, or at least one of them. I think it's the leading cause of death for the chronically homeless. And basically, they get an injury and it doesn't heal, and they die. And so as doing this, some people told me about checking out Rodney's camp. Oh, you got to go to Rodney's camp. You got to check it out. It's really nice. So I went down there, and basically 5 minutes of talking with Rodney, I thought, holy smokes, this guy has a solution. It's not the solution, but it's a solution. And one of the solutions is, it's beautiful. I mean, he's found a group of people who only want to be safe while they try to get their lives together. I mean, I have no solutions. I'm a fireman. I don't know how to solve homelessness. But the way I look at it is, we got a fire burning here. Before we figure out what the cause and origin of that fire was, why don't we just see if we can't put it out first? Okay. And so I'm using that
Please
analogy.
wrap up your comments, Mr. Hawkins.
Why can't we just keep them alive and give Rodney a piece of land from the city? There are hundreds of people who want to help. It won't cost the city a dime. If we need portable toilets, I guarantee you, if I said we need portable toilets on a specific piece of land, there would be 100 there from people who want to help these people. They don't know how to help. We want to help, but we have no direction.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next comment is from Ala Pereira. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that. To be followed by Kai Simovich, to be followed by Sherry Mackin. And do we have Ala or Aya on the line? You just need to unmute yourself, Ala. Ala, you need to unmute yourself.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry. I was trying to use my phone, but I guess my phone wasn't working. So, hello. I am a community member, been in Oceanside my whole life, and I've also helped fundraise for Camp on Wheels. And so I fully support what they're doing down there. And in regards to Rodriguez's plan, my main issues with that is that there's no mention of accommodating for BIPOC or disabled folks who are suffering from homelessness and are unhoused currently during a pandemic. And that while I kept hearing during his seminar last night that there was no resources to pay for mental health professionals. And I just don't think that's true. I think that you can find the resources to do it. If it's not through governance, if you really wanted to, you would take it upon yourself to find the money, find the resources to take care of that. And you also failed to acknowledge Rod as a mental health professional, the person that's down there working with these folks that are unhoused and giving them tents. He's doing it, so I'm sure you can do it. If he can do it and find a way to provide for people all by himself, I mean, not all by himself, like with support, but I'm sure you can do much more as a person in power and privilege. For many folks, the tents are the quickest way for them to find a solution, especially during the winter months when it is raining and cold. They're not allowed to create any kinds of walls or pallets for structure, and not everyone can qualify for immediate housing because of the rules that you all created. Also, the panelists that you reached out to last night were intelligent and very strong people. However,
10
they are
seconds
all
left.
currently housed, and what some people may just consider a success story. The topic is about currently unhoused people, not previously, and you failed to acknowledge anyone that is currently unhoused or even discuss with them about what they think.
Please wrap up.
I think the voucher plan is rushed and it lacks any drive to do anything. You say the process is slow to get resources, but there is, again, nothing stopping you from actually
please wrap up your
taking
comments.
initiative. Also, I think that you're a basic career politician.
Our next public comment is from Kai Simovich.
I think she was probably speaking to her phone and wasn't able to hear.
Oh, that's probably why. Yeah. Our next public comment is from Kai Simovich, to be followed by Sherry Mackin, to be followed by Barbara Gates. And again, we do have a lot of speakers left, so please try to stick to 2 minutes as much as you can. Kai, whenever you're ready.
Hello?
Hi.
We can hear you.
Hi. Awesome. I'm deeply bothered by the details of this proposal. And look, I admire the initiative, Rodriguez, that you've taken, that some of even our more progressive members of the council haven't on this issue. And I keep hearing the rhetoric of, well, we have to do something. But that shouldn't translate to let's do anything. Chrissy, baby, I'm going to talk real slow so you can understand me. All right, big boy? Using law enforcement to strong-arm marginalized communities is what's gotten us in this problem in the first place. If you actually cared about implementing solutions to the problems you addressed in your joke of a presentation, you get on board with the folks at Camp on Wheels. They're administering evidence-based, trauma-informed support services from the ground level. That's none of this top-down, authority-based strong-arming, right? It's happening at the grassroots level without any meddling from the state. It's a bunch of humans taking care of each other in a very beautiful way. I don't really understand what kind of reality you live in where giving someone the choice between taking what little they have or giving them this handout of a hotel voucher helps promote their self-sufficiency. You're suggesting that all these drowning people need is a glass of water, and I find that deeply disturbing. That plus all this talk on partnering with the private sector makes me feel like you're in someone's pocket or someone's in yours, but just money isn't going where it's supposed to go. And look, maybe you need that money to cover the debt from your lawsuits or to cover the expenses from your failed run for mayor, but you can't take it from the people. Can I just take a minute to soak in the moment? I never thought, as someone who was raised up here, right, that at the ripe age of 22, I'd get to address a decision maker in this beautiful city that's lived here less time than I have. Yeah, for the people at home, that's 20 plus 2. You're counting, okay? I get to witness someone making big decisions in our home who spent less time here than I have. You make me feel old, Chrissy.
Kai, you have 10 seconds left.
Old. I'm getting gray hairs because of you, man. And you might think this is a whole attack on you as a person, and it was, but it felt really good, okay? And I know it felt really good for a lot of people at home, too. So thank you for your time.
Our next public comment is from Sherry Mackin, but she is not in the room, so we'll move on to our next speaker, which is Barbara Gates, to be followed by Chip Steele, to be followed by David Fernandez.
Hi, everyone. I wrote a whole bunch of notes, and I know I'm not going to have time to read them. So I like some. It's moving to know how many people out there care. It's troubling that people like the homeless outreach team and Rodney are actually taking matters into their own hands because our city hasn't done anything. And I believe the measure of of the morality of Oceanside can be measured whether or not we just have a homeless shelter. When my own son became homeless because of his serious mental illness, which is a whole other meeting that we need to have, which was exacerbated by marijuana. Thank you to the mother who spoke to that earlier about the cannabis cultivation. There's so much to say. I just hope that there's going to be a task force. Lawrence, who talked earlier, talked about an ad hoc group. I want to be involved. My number is 310-985-9517. 310-985-9517. I want to work with people who care. Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you, Rodney, for taking matters into your own hand. There was a time when my children were young and I had moved to Oceanside 13 years ago. And there was a homeless guy begging for money and he was a mess, which is what my son looks like now. And I turned to my husband, I said, how can that happen? How can that be? And now I know.
10 seconds left.
There are good people out there who I've met who are homeless. A 62-year-old man, I called City of Oceanside and said, how can I help him? She said, Section 8, it'll take 10 years. He's 63 years old. It's going to take him 10 years to get into housing with Section 8. His neighbor has
Please wrap up your comments, Ms. Gates.
schizophrenia. I'm doing that, Ms. Sanchez. Thank you. And on the other side of him is a meth addict who threatened me. So there's everyone is unique.
Our next public comment is from Chip Steele, to be followed by David Fernandez, to be followed by someone that just registered under Maria. Mr. Steele, we are getting you on the line.
Determined. Ready? Kick it. All right.
Whenever you're ready, Mr. Steele.
So, what was determined scientifically was criminalizing abused children drives the needle deeper and deeper. Any criminalization of their plight, of their situation, and even their condition just further devastates them emotionally and psychologically and drives a worthlessness in them. The understanding of trauma has an understanding of the situation. That is why it's such a pressing need. It's the understanding of the role of trauma in families and relationships, and how hearts are devastated, and how they need to be processed in certain ways to heal them and put pieces back together. So,
could you speak up a little bit more, Mr. Steele?
Is the driving the needle deeper for us. Trauma-informed care with genuine care is what pulls the needle out and gives them purpose and heals their broken heart, because it's really about love. It's just what it narrows down to. Broken hearts simply need someone to be in it with them, who's going to get in that trench to be with them. So that's what it takes. That's how we get corrective emotional responses, because it helps them reprocess into a healthy cognitive confirmation of reality that they can really put in places that everything goes together now. Now I can have some understanding and vision of things. It's in these
10 seconds left.
People coming into these devastations that help us reach those points. Any criminalization of this is a murderous force, and that is the reality.
Thank you, Mr. Steele.
Our next public comment is from David Fernandez, to be followed by Maria, to be followed by Reginald Crawford.
Honorable Mayor and council members, thank you for your service. I speak from being a Oceanside homeowner and also resident. And my comments also stem from my own observations from the area, but also as I sat in on or participated on the Zoom call with Christopher Rodriguez regarding this matter of the homelessness. And what I did not hear last night was any collaboration that we have with our neighbors to the north and south. For example, in Carlsbad, and I had lived there before, and they don't seem to have the problems to the extent of the homelessness that we do, or our neighbors to the north of us, where my wife used to live in South Orange County, where you don't see the level of homelessness. And that's what's missing. What are our neighbors, especially the ones to the south, they're just a couple miles away, what are they doing differently? What's working for them? Because and the question I challenged to that panel is, are we opening the doors and inheriting problems from the surrounding communities? It's a question. Never was that ever mentioned, or there's no collaboration that I could notice being taken. Also, what I did also hear is the use of the facility at 3131 Oceanside Boulevard, which sits at El Camino Real and Oceanside Boulevard, as a potential shelter. And my concern, and I would like the council to really consider about where, if you're using a facility, where you have these facilities open, because that particular facility is very near homes, schools, families, and children. It was noted last night that many of the homeless, the fact is that some of them are addicted to drugs and some of them have mental challenges. So I would ask that we really be careful about where we put these facilities, whether hotels or facilities.
10 seconds left.
I'm keeping within my time frame. Thank you, Honorable Mayor and council members.
Thank you so much.
Our next public comment is from Maria, to be followed by Reginald Crawford, to be followed by Melissa Jo Dury.
We're done.
And do we have Maria on the line?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can, whenever you're ready.
Okay, cool. Honestly, I think this proposal is really infuriating. I was on Chris Rodriguez's webinar yesterday, and it was honestly extremely frustrating because he's seeming to propose like the most minimal solutions possible to be able to just immediately criminalize these people. It's like put them in hotels for a temporary amount of time and then immediately criminalize everyone who's still going to be under these vagrancy laws and remove illegal tent encampments when it doesn't seem like you have any actual solutions that show any compassion. I mean, you went into how a tent is a home and it's not humane and it's not safe, and then you're not going to offer anything beyond that. You're saying that these other solutions that Rod is giving that aren't exactly compassionate or whatever it is that you want to label it, but then you're sitting over here being like, oh, I'm going to enforce these vagrancy laws. I'm going to take down these tent encampments. You say that you've been researching this for 2 years, and I feel like for someone who's been researching this for 2 years, I don't understand how you still come to these conclusions. I mean, looking at what Rod has been able to do in the past 6 months is more than anything you've done in the past 2 years, and is likely more than anything you'll ever do in the next, like, I don't know, however long you're going to be in city council. I hope it's not going to be that long because you haven't done anything and you're not helping anyone, and I don't see anything beyond that. So it's really frustrating to hear that these are the solutions that you're proposing, and I really hope that these are implemented, and I hope that there's actually more community support among people who are Rod or people who are homeless, or you actually listen to them and you actually enforce the compassion that you're supposedly saying he's not implementing, because I don't think you've spoken with him and I don't think you've spoken with anyone else, and it's really frustrating that you're the one that's trying to come up with these policies. I think that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from Reginald Crawford, to be followed by Melissa Jo Dury, to be followed by James Howard.
I just want to thank the last speaker for saying what she said. I completely agree. I think just to get our heads straight, we got to understand that, you know, the city council has created this problem by neglecting the issue of homelessness for years. And now they're responding to the mess that they've made by criminalizing and terrorizing people who are simply trying to survive in one of the most desperate times we've seen in decades. Our city council continues to neglect its homeless population and is now getting frustrated when people have stepped up to do their job for them. I'm telling the city, yo, instead of being angry at the people trying to survive, let's divert our anger towards the people who allowed this to happen by literally doing nothing for years. We're the biggest city in North County and we have no shelter. It's unbelievable. You know, you have to be kidding me. It doesn't take a genius to see homelessness has been increasing. And the fact that we don't have a solution for it is ridiculous. We should have had a solution for this years ago. But here we are. And now we're just going to criminalize people, displace them, and use draconian law and order rhetoric to just, you know, criminalize people who are trying to survive. It's unbelievable. And, you know, this past winter, 2 houseless people died sleeping on the concrete. And these deaths, to me, are a direct result of the negligence of our public officials. We need to hold them accountable. The struggle of homelessness is not real to them. They don't feel the desperation or the urgency, and they just want to please their business interests and get them out of sight. It's a disgusting disregard for human life, and we're not going to stand for it. When it comes to Oceanside Boulevard camp and Rod's whole situation, it is literally mind-boggling that to see our council members, particularly Rodriguez, villainize people who are trying to survive. I mean, let's get a reality check, right? We're in the midst of one of the worst housing crises the nations have ever seen, a deep economic recession, and a global health pandemic. You know, this is a humanitarian crisis that requires immediate solutions. People are forced out on their streets, and our city has abandoned them. And not only abandoned them, this is the best part, not only are we abandoning them and neglecting them, we're actively criminalizing them and making it hard for them to survive. You know, I've talked to people on the street saying, hey, how's the homeless outreach team? It's nothing but waiting lists. It's nothing but dead ends. People aren't getting the help that they need. And, you know, people, and this is the best part, when the city doesn't do shit, people have to step up and actually do something. People are trying to survive. And people are trying to help themselves. We have people on the streets.
Please wrap up
Rodney,
your comments, Mr. Crawford.
you know, he's organizing resources, providing vital resources for people in need, you know, and they're cleaning up the environment. It's coordinated with local businesses. It's cleaning up the local shopping centers. So the fact that y'all would fight this is unbelievable. And it's just a shame. And it's a fucking tragedy. So I hope.
All right.
Mr. Crawford.
Our next public comment is from Melissa Jo Dury, to be followed by James Howard, to be followed by B. Palmer. And just a reminder to the public, this is being broadcasted on KOCT. So please do not give us any expletive words that could result in some troubles for KOCT and the FCC. Melissa Jo, whenever you're ready.
Thank you also very much for having me here. I appreciate it. It is a privilege to be here. I do want to say that I've noticed from the time that I got here 11 years ago that the homeless population has gotten worse. I definitely don't want to see it get worse. I definitely want to make sure that I'm being of an assistance and not making things more difficult. So for who, I'm not sure exactly who Rod is. And then I heard Vanessa Graziano. I would love to connect with you all to do the best I can to help. That was my main goal in being here this evening. Again, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate you all. And I hope that someone will reach out to me or show some way for me to get a hold of you so that I can help in any way, shape, or form. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Melissa.
Thank you. Our next public comment was from James Howard, but we are unable to find him in the room. So we'll move to our final speaker, B. Palmer. And she is also not in the room. So that concludes the public comment on this item.
Thank you very much. So there is not a motion on the floor. I did want to. Did any council members would any council members like to speak? Would you like to speak? Yes. Deputy Mayor.
This is Councilman Rodriguez's item. I'm not sure what
his time is over, and he did make a motion.
So,
did you? Were those the comments that you had? No other comments? Councilmember Jensen.
Thank you. I would like to say that our intent is not to criminalize. Law enforcement is boots on the ground. They're there. They would naturally be involved in this voucher process. Not to arrest people, but to help people. And I believe that an emergency action needs to be taken. I get emails daily from constituents regarding this problem, and we have to take an action. I think this voucher program could be a solution. We will have a very short time, 180 days, to discern that. But I think it will give us real-time information as to which direction we need to go with our resources. And with that, I'd like to yield the balance of my time to Councilmember Rodriguez.
No, you can't.
Oh, I can't.
Deputy Mayor Keim, did you want to make another comment?
yes. At this point, I am concerned with the way that we go so quickly in other directions. I don't see a coherent strategy for this. Homeless crisis was the #1 issue I heard during the campaign. It was the #1 issue as a police officer in the city. I think it's something that we have to get right. The notice of funding availability just came out. I want to give staff a chance to do that. I'd like to make a motion to continue with staff's current RFP and conclude the item. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Weiss?
You know, the fact that we're having this conversation at all demonstrates that people's patience with the homeless crisis and the city's response are at a breaking point. I mean, this is a compassionate city, but compassion without accountability fails. We all need to recognize the challenges of homelessness affect more than just the people living on the streets. Helping Oceanside's homeless has been a city priority, as it should be. They lack shelter, which is a basic human need, and typically face economic or health problems. Sometimes the worst among them prey on their fellows with violence and theft. Alcohol and drugs are a constant specter and temptation. That people live in those circumstances is unacceptable. It's human nature to want to provide aid, but aid without accountability also fails. Some of the city's homeless residents are disruptive and resistant to services. Yes, there are families and people who have had some bad times and want nothing more than get back on their feet. But there are also troublemakers out there who willfully remove themselves from society, demonstrate unacceptable behavior, and commit crimes that harm the rest of the community. Even when there aren't crimes, human camping in public places almost always winds up with trash, needles, human waste accumulating nearby. Having compassion does not require tolerating or enabling destructive behavior. We must get homeless residents into stabilized, service-rich housing. That won't be cheap, and it won't happen quickly. The city, I think, does a great job in addressing long-term needs for the homeless that want help and support. Even with our plans for a comprehensive facility, building it is going to take time. While everyone waits, the immediate negative effects that homelessness has on the community persist. We need some type of shelter or resource center and be able to direct homeless residents to them. That will require additional investment, finding appropriate sites for beds and camping. It is possible, and it could be implemented relatively quickly. The city needs only the will to help, but we need to say that enough is enough to people who don't want help but want to prey on the community. We need to be clear that sleeping on the street is not acceptable, nor are theft, violence, and trashing public spaces. We have to make it uncomfortable for the homeless to disrupt public spaces so that they have a greater motivation to seek out the services that provide housing, food, job training, healthcare, and treatment of addiction. The services are out there, and more will continue to come online. However, there's clearly a gap in services, as is evidenced by the growth of the homeless camps in the San Luis Rey River, along the Airport Industrial Park areas, and the Oceanside Boulevard corridor. We can't solve the overall homeless crisis overnight or with one solution, but we can and should start with those in most need, take the necessary steps, start small, make a difference, do it again, and do it again. I would ask the city manager to develop an actionable plan to provide a short-term, safe, secure, and sanitary options for the homeless while we wait for these longer-term solutions to materialize. This clearly is and has been a priority for the City Council. However, contrary to what some of the people said, it is not the council's role to solve the problem. That is what the city manager and staff are supposed to do. We have made it a priority. We have provided the funding necessary to address the priority. It is now up to staff to address the problem. I would hope that that plan, I don't think it needs to come back to council. It's the role of the city manager and staff to put a plan together. Please inform us, but go out and let us know what you're doing, but go out, develop a plan, implement it, and do it.
Thank you, Councilmember Weiss. I believe that we all have gone to the city manager and talked to her about what is happening, what we see. I may have been the first person to go to her and also City Attorney, Mr. Mullen, asking, well, what can we do? What can we do right away while we have this pending notice of funding availability? Which I feel, having seen it, and I have to say, it was very hard for me to sit waiting for this to come out. We did give the direction to staff back in September, and when I saw it, I thought, okay, there was a lot of thought put into this. certainly a lot of conversations at the, with other cities and seeing what is working in other cities and in the region per some of the comments that were made by the public members. So I think what we're saying here, and I hear a majority, that yes, we support what the notice of funding availability is very comprehensive. It's also very aggressive timeline. It was published on March 1st. It's due by April 16th. There's time for staff to be able to respond to questions so that we get comprehensive responses, and we will be choosing what we do going forward in June. So I really want to say I support that. It's $8 million, $6 million for affordable housing. We need those units. We need a number of things to happen, from shelter to transitional to permanent supportive housing. We know that. We can't just take someone from a shelter and leave them in a shelter. There has to be supportive services. And what I saw and what I have been hearing from the city manager's office is that, okay, we do have, staff is working on an interim program. We're not going to do nothing. We're going to move the encampments by offering motel vouchers. So I would like Ms. Larson to at least explain what that program is and see if that satisfies some of our concerns that we have for what can happen in the meantime.
Honorable Mayor and council members, Deanna Larson, City Manager. In the memo that I provided to you, we also posted that online so the public can take a look. We outline that staff is developing a hotel-motel voucher program that can be offered to any homeless person. The voucher program will be modeled after the current COVID hotel-motel voucher program that we have already developed. We do anticipate, though, that this will be costly. It could be approximately $26,000 per week. We will need to return to council to appropriate funds for that purpose, but staff are actively working on developing that program. Also included in the handout are the client rules. And so while it is designed for anyone to take advantage of, you've got to be committing to following those rules and making progress towards becoming housed as part of the requirements, as well as not furthering nuisance activities and such in the environment that you are in. The program would include room and board, security, case management, and enhanced cleaning under the COVID rules. Case management is very important so that those wraparound services are provided for homeless individuals to address the trauma or whatever situations that they have landed in so that they can get housed. And we recognize that there's a wide variety of needs within the homeless community. And so we need to have a variety of solutions tailored to each one's needs. Staff is working on developing that. I've consulted with staff. They've been looking at potential operators, putting a program together, and we will return to council as quickly as we can for any necessary authorizations. I do have our excellent staff here. Megan Crooks, our interim neighborhood services director, Sal Roman, who is our homeless coordinator, and Angie Hannafin, housing administrator, should you have any more detailed questions about the parameters of the program.
I do understand that you have been looking for operators and for having the majority of the vouchers in one place so that it could be easily provide the food, the resources, the services, because we're not just going to give someone a voucher and say, okay, you're up to your, you can do anything with this. We're going to follow that person. We're going to make sure that that person receives the help. In addition to that, I have been advocating with the county with our Board of Supervisors to provide additional social workers and mental health workers, because we need those services in order to be able to be successful. So I appreciate, Ms. Larson, that you've been working with me on that. And, these are calls that we need to continue to make sure that that happens. And that's with the other North County cities who are on the homeless task force. Councilmember Weiss, did you have some more comments?
Just one, I have a question in regards to the RFP. Is the RFP open to any service provider, whether they need non-city money or not?
The RFP is open to anyone who can meet the requirements in the RFP. There's a variety of funding sources. So there's one funding source that is the Housing First model, but not all of the funding sources require that. And so, as I stated, we recognize that there's a variety of approaches to try to help the homeless, and we feel that that would be the best solution, is provide a variety of approaches tailored to different segments of the community.
So a service provider that wants to provide a solution but does not do Housing First still has the ability to submit a proposal under the RFP, and it will be evaluated on its merits.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So I do want to assure the public that this is a very good notice of funding availability document. It is available on the website if you would like to review it. Try to post it, but it was several pages. But it's very, very comprehensive, and yes, let's work together to address all our homeless issues. We made a commitment as the North County Task Force to shelter at least half of our unsheltered within 2 years. We're coming up on that. So we know that we have to do this. We know that this is something that we all care dearly about. So I appreciate your patience with us. We do have funding, we do have a plan, and especially with an interim plan. So thank you very much. Doesn't look like we actually need a motion to vote on a motion. We've given direction to staff, and all our affordable housing specialists, shelter specialists, please continue with the application process. We really want to work with you and address our homeless needs in Oceanside. Thank you. Next council item is item number 25. This is requests by council members Jensen and Rodriguez to discuss Alex Road Skate Park health and safety improvements to include running water, sewer, and electricity, and direction to staff. Councilmember Rodriguez?
It's Councilmember Jensen.
Oh, my apologies, Councilmember Jensen.
Yes, I'd like to speak on the Alex Road Prince Park skate park that we have in desperate need of sanitation, water, electricity. We're blessed to have one of the best skate parks in California. It's a highly used park. There are people there all day, every day. This park also serves some of our most in need communities for places for kids to go. I've been told by people at the park that 80% of the kids that go to this skate park on a daily basis come from the foster care system and would have no other safe place to go if this park was not available to them. That being said, the park lacks sanitation facilities. There's one restroom there that is horrible. There's no running water. There is no power. And I understand that staff has been able to come up with some environmentally friendly solutions for the sanitation and water situation. I believe we can look into getting power through SDG&E. And this incredible park really needs our care and attention right now. And with that, I'd like to give direction to staff to prioritize provision for restrooms at Alex Road Skate Park and return at the City Council Budget Workshop on April 14th, 2021, with the funding recommendation to complete the improvements as expeditiously as possible. And I'd like to, do you have the video of the environmentally friendly solution for the sanitation issue?
The outdoors sure are great until Nature calls, and there's nowhere to go. Or maybe there is a place to go, but it's one of these. Instead of this, wouldn't it be better to have a real restroom experience? Green Flush restrooms fit anywhere and come with flush toilets and sinks, making them comfortable and odorless. Call or email us today to learn more.
Councilmember Rodriguez?
I know we have some public. I can speak after that. I would definitely want to second your motion. We've met with staff, talked to staff about this. I was really impressed that Councilmember Jensen immediately has began interacting with the constituents in District 1 and hearing about important needs. I know I've continuously heard concerns and complaints with the lack of facilities at this park. It is not in my district, but I kind of came over from District 2 and met with a lot of the locals there and got to know the amazingly large skate community and the skate culture we have here in Oceanside. And my children love to skate. We usually go to Melba Bishop because it's closer to our house. But just amazing group of true Oceansiders. And this is a heavily used park. I know that out of the 30 parks we have, I believe it's about 12 do not have restrooms. But the key here is this is a heavily used park, and the length of time our youth and families are at this park is just astronomically longer than any of our other parks that don't have bathrooms. And so it's really important just from a health and sanitary dynamic that we get creative. Thankfully, the city manager forwarded us some information on retrofit prefabricated units that do not need utility hookups. And eventually when the project goes in the drive-in area, it can be retrofitted to actually tie into sewer and water lines at a future time. And so I really like staff to move forward, and I support and second Councilmember Jensen's item to bring it back at our CIP budget and have a little more information, and we can make decisions, a vote at that future time. But I'd like to hear more from the constituents.
Let's hear from the public.
All right. There are 9 speakers on this item. Our first speaker is Diana Lacroix, to be followed by Joseph Salvaggio, to be followed by Andre Taylor. Diana, whenever you're ready.
Hi, I had to step out because I'm at youth group, but I just really appreciate the opportunity to speak for, the community, the skate community today. And I just implore that you guys, it sounds like you're going to be moving forward, hopefully with a bathroom facility. I have 2 daughters that skate at the park, and they're friends, and they spend like 5 hours on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, skating. This is a sport, and it's something that our kids can get out there and do. There's no restroom. It's deplorable, the situation. There's nowhere to wash your hands, and there's nowhere to get a drink of water. And so I would really appreciate your attention as a community member to take this seriously and really fix the park up for the kids without any downtime, because these kids are passionate about their sport. And so hopefully there will not be any downtime at the park. So that's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comment was from Joseph Salvaggio, but we are unable to find him in the room. So we'll move on to our next public comment from Andre Taylor. Mr. Taylor, whenever you're ready.
Hello, my name is Andre Taylor. I'm the programs coordinator at the Skate Park Project, formerly known as the Tony Hawk Foundation. Support getting basic amenities at Alex Road Skate Park and Prince Park. Hello, been skating for 18 years, thanks to the initial park down by the pier. I've been following the construction of Alex Road Skate Park since I was in high school and been there since opening day. Let's see. The community that Prince Park fosters is a great one. See, a lot of the maintenance is done by the users of the park. They clean up any sort of like just skate wear. There were makeshift construction or shades before the formal ones went up, or the construction of the installation. one downfall that I've seen in the facility is that it doesn't have proper restroom facilities. In addition to the restrooms having running water, the park lacks drinking water. I do understand the expense, but the safety is at stake here. Sanitization is obvious from the bathrooms, but many participants refuse to use it. The nearest location for a bathroom or a drink of water is half a mile away. On that journey, it's required to cross a freeway and Mission Avenue. And then, of course, you have to buy that water or buy something to use the bathroom. These are barriers of entry that are often less accessible to youth that don't have a source of income. I personally feel the value in mitigating this safety risk exceeds the expense. The next thing I'm going to touch on is the lighting. Lighting the park would allow for a greater window for the park to be appreciated. You get 1,000 hours more of it being used every year. By adding lights, it'll activate the space and deter vandalism and crime. It's not common for participants to come to the park with having to clean up glass or graffiti. I've definitely seen Oceanside Police Department recover multiple vehicles from the parking lot in the morning. You have people there, it's not going to happen so frequently. Road Skate Park is the favorite location of many people of all walks of life, including several folks that will train and be in the Olympics for skateboarding and live locally. Please allow us to benefit more from this great recreational asset. Thank you for considering this item.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we did find Mr. Salvaggio. So, Mr. Salvaggio, whenever you're ready. You
Go
can
ahead.
start.
We hear you.
You're good.
You can start, Joseph.
You can speak.
You're on.
Who's Joseph?
Yes.
He said, who's Joseph?
Oh.
I'm not Joseph, I'm Josh.
Oh.
He's Josh.
Oh, okay. Well, then we'll move on to our...
No Joseph Salvaggio.
We'll move on to the next one, Marquis Jones, to be followed by Roger Davenport.
Jeez.
We apologize for that. Okay,
Here we
Mr.
are
Jones.
thinking he couldn't hear us.
So I'm probably going to touch on a lot of things that everyone has been saying a lot so far. A lot of kids do come to this park, and it's like kind of like their safe space. So like, you know, they come there to hang out pretty much kind of all day, you know, like it's like their second home. And I feel like they don't have the utilities and things that they need to be safe there, you know. We just got a hand washing station like recently. It's not really like a great one, but it's something. So they have been making progress of trying to get us things. We just got shade sales, thanks to Christopher Rodriguez. He really helped, and he's seen that there was a lot of kids there that are there all day, and you know, a lot of sun. We're like kind of like in a big pit right there, so it's a lot of sun. I mean, we don't have a drinking fountain, so kids are, you know, liable to, you know, pass out. You know, you never know. They don't have a proper drinking fountain to drink from, you know. Like, I know it's hard now that COVID hit, so it's going to be a long shot to get a drinking fountain, I would say. But these kids come there and they just need somewhere to hang out and be safe, you know. We're trying to get lights for them because, you know, a lot of them want to be there and stay active and stay off the streets, you know. Me and my buddy Josh, the one that just came on, we try to do a lot for the park, you know, keep kids safe, keep kids out of trouble, try to host events when we can. We try to get like little vendors or whatever to come feed them, you know, give them waters whenever. We get shut down a lot. You know, the police come and tell us we can't have that, you know, without a permit from the city, which I guess we understand, you know. But I just want to say, you know, it would be nice for us to get new bathrooms. We have one toilet that both kids use. It's not a great bathroom, you know. It's not wheelchair accessible. We do have wheelchairs that come skate the park too. There's a lot of things that we need there, and I just want this to bring attention to our park. And that's it. Yeah.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from Roger Davenport, to be followed by Diane Wilkie, to be followed by Alec Beck.
Okay, hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, well, I'll skip over the hypocrisy of Rodriguez and Jensen bringing this thing up, because they've been arguing for the last 2 weeks that we don't have money to operate our own aquatic center. Now they're ready to spend money on improvements to the skate park. But, you know, people are saying there's no toilet. There's a toilet there. There's a place to wash your hands. And people bring their own water everywhere they go in cities nowadays. So I don't think there's a real issue here of not having health and safety. Then there's the question about, you know, Rodriguez kept bringing up in the last 2 meetings about this policy that programs and things need to pay their way. So does that mean that Rodriguez and Jensen are proposing to shut down other facilities or start charging admission to the skate parks to pay for this? Because this is going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. And finally, the only reason to bring electricity to the site would be for lighting. And that's a bad idea for several reasons. First of all, the glare from a brightly lit concrete structure so close to the landing pattern of the airport could disturb the night vision of pilots during their critical operation of landing at night. It's only about 1,200 feet from the end of the runway, which is the normal direction of landing. So it'd be right in an approaching pilot's field of view. Not a good idea. Also, daytime usage of the skate park enables everyone to see what's happening in and around the area and allows people to self-police. I would expect great increases in drug and alcohol use, fights and assaults, property damage, and theft if you light this up and extend it into the night, because you wouldn't be getting families, you'd be getting teens and young adults. And that's unless, of course, you hire somebody to be there on site to supervise it. And then you're talking again about adding tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars to the operational costs. So I'm curious how Rodriguez and Jensen think they're going to fund this, and how they happen to think that this is more worth funding than other things. I think if it's considered at all, it ought to be to add these suggestions to the existing list of city park things in the parks master plan. And it doesn't seem to me that there's any pressing need for staff to be assigned to consider this and come back. They have more pressing business. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next public comment is from Diane Wilkie, to be followed by Alec Beck, to be followed by Joshua Carson.
Good evening. As a retired advanced practice nurse and public health nurse, I certainly don't want to begrudge anybody for essential health and safety needs. What I would like to say, however, is that any further investments in parks need to come from developer fees for parks. Mr. Rodriguez, your last plan for this park cost the taxpayers $45,000 for what is now will become hazardous waste. The HDPE sales that you had been advised that high-density polyethylene contains PFAS, and under the new California regulations, PFAS are going to be banned as a class of chemicals. And so now we've generated another expense for the city to dispose of these hazardous waste products. In the meantime, these microplastics from these sales will be contaminating our air, our soil, and the water. We shouldn't be on the hook for these items, Chris. In the meantime, let's wake up, Oceanside. Some of us do our due diligence. We know what we're talking about. It would behoove you to listen, read our written input in advance, and avail yourselves of outside resources, not glossy brochures for these items when we provide them to you. I will say that I think that drinking fountains are going to be an item of the past. You'll be able to see them in museums at some point. COVID-19 has proven that these are not a good thing. I would suggest everybody BYOW, bring your own water. The rest of the world does that. It doesn't need to be plastic bottles because that adds to the microplastic burden, as well as what you're consuming in the form of microplastics. As far as a bathroom, that's something to look at, but again, from developer fees. And there is a development plan there. And I see a lot of head shaking going on over the lighting. Not being a pilot myself, I would venture to guess that the head shaker is also not a pilot. And I think this is a consideration for the airport to weigh in on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next public comment is from Alec Beck, to be followed by Joshua Carson, to be followed by Michaela Ramirez.
Hi, folks. Mayor and council members, thank you for taking the time to get us all together to talk about the skate park. There's no better way to pack the virtual halls of the city than to talk about the skate park. So in reference to my name is Alec Beck. I'm the public education manager at the skate park project, formerly known as the Tony Hawk Foundation. We granted $25,000 to the system of skate parks that were, the first 3 have been implemented in Oceanside so far. Some of those projects were intended to originally have these amenities built in place. So this is not something that's being added on after the fact. This is a long overdue intention being fulfilled. To the last 2 speakers, I absolutely agree that it's worth consulting FAA regulations and talking with the Oceanside Airport specialist to see whether or not lighting glare would be dangerous or not. So far, I haven't seen much about that, but absolutely do your due diligence and do your jobs. And I'd like to thank the city of Oceanside for doing their jobs to help ensure that these skate parks, these fabulous recreational amenities for all the action sports constituents in one of the most popular skating areas in the country, are respectable in terms of having basic facilities, somewhere to use the restroom without crossing a freeway, somewhere to fill up your metal water bottle when you're done skating and exercising all day. So thank you all for coming out to talk about this, and I'm excited to see that this park ends up being exactly what it was designed to be. That's it.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from Josh Carson, to be followed by Michaela Ramirez.
Yes, my name is Josh Carson. I've been at the park for 8 years since it opened also. And I just want to say that I understand people's concern, but we are our own security right there. We're there every single day. And I promise you that the bad stuff that happens at that skate park happen at nighttime. I've been asking for a key so I could lock it myself every night because it doesn't get locked at all ever. And when I asked Mr. Rodriguez for a key and we were supposed to get one, he was going to talk to you guys about getting us one. All of a sudden the bathroom was locked for 2 weeks straight, just locked. So we have to pick the locks for the girls to use the restroom because us boys, we can use it. We'll figure it out. But if I get seen doing that, I can go to jail for that too. So it's just like, I don't know why we get punished for just trying to take care of our park, because we get blamed for the graffiti that goes on in the bathroom, all the bad stuff. Have you noticed that there's not been graffiti in the bathroom, just been nice stuff like art and stuff like that? We care about this place, man. It's something special for these kids. I live right here in Fireside. There's nothing to look forward to over here. There's nothing to look forward to. Everyone's smoking fentanyl pills, all kinds of stuff. You guys probably don't know that in City Hall because you guys don't come over here in these kind of bad neighborhoods. But I'm just telling you, that thing down the bike trail, it's paradise for us, man. And I look forward to going there every day after work just to see the little homies skating and like doing something positive. I film them, I make edits, and I take pride in that park. Me and Marquise, man, Marquise is my guy, and I back everything he said. And I just think Qualcomm Stadium's close to an airport too, right? There's a way to do this. If not, we can still bring I have lights that we bring our own lights and we'll light it up. But I'm just saying, I make sure that you guys aren't going to suffer right there in C9. I promise you. We're not going to bug you guys. We're not going to do anything. There's no vandalism. We take care of our park. You've never seen graffiti inside, and if you do, there's consequences to those people that do it. We find out who does it. I promise you, we take pride in that place. Michael Prince was a good friend, and I respect that place so much because it's Prince Park. No one calls Alex Road, but you guys, just saying. But I appreciate you guys talking about this. I appreciate you guys like even considering a skateboarding a topic in a city council meeting, and thank you guys for the park, period. If it just stays the way it is, I'm happy still because we have that place. That place is paradise. And thank you. My kids have enjoyed it for 8 years. Chris Rodriguez and Jensen do it. I back you guys 100%. Thank you guys for bringing light to this place. I've been screaming from the rooftops for 8 years when my kids used to have to cross the 76 to go get water. And then the homeless gauntlet that there's people screaming and yelling, like, you know what I mean? I don't want little kids somebody gets hit by a car right there, bro. It's just not good look for any of us.
Thank you.
That's all I have to say, and I appreciate everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our last public comment is from Michaela Ramirez.
Hi, thank you, council members and Mayor Esther Sanchez for allowing us to bring this topic forth to all city members. And it's so great to see some of the people that I actually worked with since the skate park has been open, Andre being one of them, and seeing how he's also using his influence to advocate for his local park, Prince Park, Alex Road. I want to explain the dire need for sanitation at Prince Park. Being a female and having a daughter that's 6-year-old and seeing other children that are her age and a little older, it's very important that they have a sanitary restroom to use. It's a basic human right that we should be able to have there for everyone that goes and enjoys the skate park. I personally sometimes have to do the embarrassing thing and go across the street and pee in a bush because the bathroom there is so unsanitary. And I do it because there's no other place to go and my daughter wants to stay at the park, or we're helping other children there too. And, I know there's a lot of adult women that go across the street to use the trees instead of going inside that bathroom because it's just that unsanitary. And taking it on a female level of just the bathroom, think of the women that are menstruating and young females that begin to menstruate and have their periods. They themselves want to enjoy the park, but then the next thing they know, they have to use the restroom. If not, their pants are full of blood. That's not sanitary, nor is that puts females in a predicament that they can't go and enjoy a skate park. That's where I'm coming from. Number two, I know some of you guys were talking about the lighting and the airport. My husband is a pilot, and we've talked about the lighting situations because he deals with a lot of stuff when he flies. He's flown commercial and he flies private. And he suggested that there be lamps that go over the lights because then the light glares down to the ground rather than above in the air. And that's what a lot of places near airports do when they come to business facilities. And yes, I agree. It's important to have the airport off the 76 and the FAA be joining this conversation, but there are solutions to the lighting as well. As for the light shades, the shade sales, I want to say thank you. Thank you for making that happen. Thank you for advocating and making that happen for the kids. That place is like standing in a desert during the summer and
Please
during the winter.
wrap up your comments, Ms. Ramirez.
I'm sorry, what?
You're done with 3 minutes, so please wrap up your comments.
I'm so sorry. Okay, I definitely will. So I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. That park is such a precious park. There's people that know it from around the world. That is a global skate park. Oceanside should take pride in that. And the people involved should advocate for the youth. The youth has no...
Thank you very much.
That concludes the public comment.
Thank you. Councilmember Weiss.
Thank you. I'm going to be supporting the motion that this come back as part of the CIP budget discussion. But I want to make sure that we have the opportunity to evaluate this project, and I'll just mention parks projects, against lights and sport fields, pickleball, basketball, El Corazon Park. There are a number of priorities, particularly in our parks program, that we need to effectively evaluate what is a priority. And I say that specifically because at last night's Parks and Recreation Commission meeting, it came up again that every park project that the City Council approved for this year's capital improvement budget has been on hold this entire year. And so what I don't want to do is what we've done this year is raise people's expectations and then have nothing happen on any of those projects. So I would look forward to the discussion and looking at the priorities, not just in our parks program, but all of the city's CIP projects, and make appropriate decisions at that time.
Thank you. So my comments. When I became a council member, and this is early, 2000, and started in 2001, I looked around to see what kind of activities the kids needed, and there were, obviously a laundry list. One of the things that really concerned me were the kids in the neighborhood who were the skateboarders who were hanging on to cars, and then skating, because we did not have any skate parks. And so we tried several things as a council, and I want to say that I really appreciate the passion that staff had in trying to find solutions. First, we tried neighborhood parks. Some of the parks actually stayed, but some of them, there was just so many complaints from the public because of the noise, because unfortunately, they would stay for like very long time, especially if there were lights. And we started with Rotary Park, as I recall. I don't, Peter, was it Rotary Park? Yeah. And some others. I mean, even at Baldrama Park, and those kids still want a skate park. Unfortunately, there just isn't, it's just not consistent with the community and being so dense. I will tell you that the lights were a bad idea for Baldrama Park. Having said that, what staff came up with was, okay, we're having a hard time keeping these parks in the neighborhood. Why don't we find a place where the kids can skate and there won't be as many complaints? So that's why you see a really cool park at Alex Road. We were able to get $25,000 grant from Tony Hawk, but also we got I think it was $300,000 grant from the state. So this is why we were able to do this. The challenges, of course, is that it has no access at this time and at that time, and this is 10 years ago, to the water and sewer lines, because that would have to come later. We all knew that, but we wanted to build something really nice for the kids. And so I have to say that everyone that was involved did a really, really great job. I think it is a place where kids can skate, and I do understand that there are kids who come from somewhere other than Oceanside coming to this place. The facilities, the restroom facilities, because there's no connection at the site, were the national park standard. Over time, it does appear that it doesn't work. Peter, Councilmember Weiss mentioned a good point, and that is that there's a lot of needs. Baldrama Park, I've been trying to get a new bathroom facility there. A kid can't go in there. It is just a really, really old, ugly, smelly, and usually there are condoms in there. There are needles, all kinds of stuff. So, and I'm told by staff it's going to cost $1 million. It's on the CIP list, but it's an unfunded item, and it's been unfunded for, you know, for the entire time. So there are other things I would like to see, because I have been talking to the city manager. I would like to see she and staff have looked into and found a potential solution, short-term solution, until we can have these hookups, and that is something that would cost maybe $200,000, as I understand. The closest model of that is in Los Angeles, which would allow for water, running water. So I would like to see that come back. I believe, again, Ms. Larson, did you say it was about $200,000?
Honorable Mayor and Councilmember, Diane Wilkie, City Manager. So the technology that I shared with you is the same green flush restroom that Councilmember Jensen showed while she was speaking. And it is designed for an environment where you don't have sewer or water, but we are also investigating the ability to maybe bring in water fairly inexpensively so that we could actually have water and then just the tank septic system. But staff's evaluating that. We need to put together the whole package. That'll take a little bit of time, but we'll have it ready for the CIP workshop so that council can consider it and evaluate it relative to all of the other priorities. And the plan would include a facility that has running water, hand washing, as well as flush-style toilets. Hopefully some sort of drinking fountain with a filling station for water, potentially some landscaping enhancements as well. But we're putting together that package so we can present it at the budget workshop.
And it would be the bathrooms, but not electrical, is that correct?
Mayor, staff is also looking into the ability to bring electrical into the park as well, and the costs that might be associated with that.
So you would be looking at the FAA rules and
Absolutely.
Okay.
Due to the proximity of the airport, anything would have to comply with FAA rules. We're familiar with those. It's a process, but it's something that we can work through.
Okay. Well, I do support an interim project. I don't support a full connection to at this time, because we're having to make every single dollar stretch. As you've seen, we're starting to, we are going to get some potential relief for a short period of time because the American Recovery Act passed, but how much of that could actually be spent on any of these projects? Probably not. It's about economic recovery. It's not about parks, unfortunately. So there's a motion and a second, and that is for it to be coming back. But, okay. Let me just ask, Councilmember Weiss, you're supporting the motion, but your comments were as to how this will look compared to the other projects in the CIP.
Just that it's going to come back with the budget, the CIP budget.
Okay. All right. Any other comments? Nope. Please vote. And I'll support this, but only if it's, ends up at the lower cost, not $1 million.
Motion approved, 5-0.
Okay. Council comments at all? General council comments? Not on items on the agenda? Everybody's getting ready to go. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn this meeting to a mayor council workshop, 2 p.m. on March 17th, 2021. Ms. Larson, what is the workshop? I had thought that it was about zero waste, but I'm hearing it's also about water rates.
Mayor and council members, the workshop was scheduled for zero waste. However, we recently were informed by the county water district that we received a refund of water fees. So we are presenting some recommendations to council so we can get direction on how you would like us to utilize those funds. And so both items are related to water utilities department at that workshop.
And if you wish to speak on these items, you would have to send an email to the city clerk by what time, Mr. Novato?
About 12 noon.
By 12 noon?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. That's St. Patty's Day, and happy birthday, Mom. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.